Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode 135. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by Chris Raygun. Chris, how are you today?
I'm well. I'm feeling very, very, very productive lately, which has been a nice.
Me too.
It's been a nice change of pace because for a while I was just kind of in a malaise almost. You know, or it was just like, oh man, I don't know.
Nice.
Now
I'm happy to hear that. I want to get back to this in a moment, but before I do, I also want to introduce the executive producer of Last Stand Media, sometimes guest, co-host on Sacred Symbols and Elsewhere, Dustin Furman. Dustin, thank you for joining us today.
I'm happy to be here because it's my first time on video, so people not only can make fun of my takes, but also my appearance. So I'm ready.
You're a handsome young man.
That's how it goes.
I mean, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I'm excited, though.
I look like a Neanderthal man, so it's really not, you know. You don't have
I didn't know you had
about,
tattoos, Dustin.
I do have just this one, which I realize now as I'm sitting here that it's like, it looks like I'm like, hey, check this out. Like, I was sitting kind of weird.
I always roll up I don't wear button downs anymore, but I'd always roll up my button down sleeves because I have little girl arms. So I always felt like I look good in button downs, but I like the tight look, you know, the sleeve. Right. But then I remember someone asking me, they were like, oh, do you do that to show off your tattoos? And I'm like, no, I don't. I really don't do it that way. And then I kind of became self-conscious about it because I didn't want people. I'm like, if he thinks I do it that then other people think I do that too. So, but Chris, I want to get back to this thing real quick. You're feeling productive. What have you been up to lately?
I don't know. Well, I've started getting up at like 7 a.m. every day, just as like a self-disciplinary thing. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to get up super early. Because I know I have a habit of just sort of like laying in bed for a while, which like is kind of fine as long as you have a rest of the day. But like when I was waking up at like, I don't know, like noon, I would be in bed and then it'd be like 1 and then like over in LA and as everywhere that has daylight savings time, it's going to get dark in like 3 hours. So it feels like the day's gone. But like when I'm like up at like 7, then I could be like, all right, it's more relaxed. I can ease out of my bed and I can start the day at like 8 and still have like an entire rest of the day. I don't feel as hampered. And because no one else is on, nobody else is awake or doing anything. No one's distracting me. You know, it's good. It's a good time to be awake and just work on stuff.
Yeah, Sweeney's not going to be up at 8.
No, certainly not.
In the morning. So you don't have to worry about that. And it's funny. I've been feeling really productive too. I've had a really productive past few days. So it's funny that you say that. It's good. I feel like I need to get things done every day. That's just the way I've always been.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, that's part of like what manifests my just acute anxiety is just when things start stacking up. I'm like, I gotta do something today. Like I have to do something today. And so that's always my motivating factor. Now, Dustin.
Yes.
I feel like out of the three of us, you have, Chris looks like he's in like, at any town USA teenage boys room. I look like I'm in a Chechnyan prison cell, and you look like you're actually like a sophisticated Twitch streamer.
Carrick told me that my room looked like an Ubisoft press booth. So ever since he said that, it made me a little self-conscious. Like, am I overdoing it, with the lights? But I just like enjoy. I don't know. This is how I leave it when I work. I've like gotten used to this like dark room work mentality, which is probably going to kill my eyes in, I don't know, 5 years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I feel very productive working in a dark room.
I live like a bat and I have 20/20 vision. So you got nothing to worry about.
So.
You got nothing to worry about.
Dang.
All right. Well, this is Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, our weekly PlayStation podcast. You can get it 3 days early and ad free by supporting us on Patreon, like more than 10,000 of you do. Patreon.com/laststandmedia. That also gives you ad free and early access to our increasingly popular Defining Duke Xbox podcast. Now, Chris, the episode you were on last week is actually outpacing on YouTube the traffic of this very show.
Oh.
And at first I was like, I don't like this. And then I'm like, I own both shows. So that's fine.
There you go.
In fairness, the search terms for my name plus Halo is probably like higher than either of those like independently. you know? Well, certainly not Halo.
Well, I'm sure that's all Maddie, by the way, because I think didn't I complain that I didn't want Chris's name in the title?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that was
Chris
Maddie's
doesn't know that, but I was like, I don't want Chris's name in the title because just because it gives me. Dustin knows I am incredibly OCD about the indices and the way things look. So when it says like feet with like period and then Chris, I'm like, no other episode has that. But then I'm like, oh, this is a whole nother thing we're doing. Yeah, it's not my show.
I'm the same way. Like the way things look visually. Like sometimes I'll put tweets out and I'll post them, and then just the way that like if a line ends and like goes to the next like line in like a weird way, I'll take it down just because it looks strange, which is really stupid and it makes no sense whatsoever. But it is, it's weird.
You're a fan of formatting, and frankly, so am I.
The thing for me, since we have so many thumbnails now going onto our channel, we have new thumbnails almost every day, and so I'm trying to be as thorough and make them look as good as possible, but also not obsessive. Mm-hmm. Like today was a day I made the thumbnail and hit save, put it on the episode, and I'm like, something's not right. And then I edited it again, put it on again. I swear I did this 4 times. And I'm like, you know what? It's good.
Yeah, you gotta walk away.
I've done that.
Yeah. By the way, speaking of the productivity, Chris, I've noticed that I guess this is what you've been saying, but like you've actually been publishing videos is a very unusual thing that you've been doing lately on YouTube.
Yeah. I usually sit on...
You're actually publishing videos.
Because I usually like spend a lot of time writing things, and like by the time I'm done, I like don't really care that much about it, and I just kind of forgot the original tone that I was trying for. It's almost like I'm a very spur of the moment worker. Like I need to be like, okay, I have an idea, I'm going to write it. When I'm done writing it, I'm going to edit it, or I'm going to film it. And then like when I'm done filming it, I'm going to edit it. That's just how I work. I work in like segmented periods of crunch almost. So I can't and I've been trying to do that thing where it's like, okay, I'll write something today and then like I'll take a break and then tomorrow I'll do it. And it's just like for a while I thought that it was just healthier, but it just doesn't work for me. It's probably healthy for most people. It's probably like arguably like a way better way to get things done. But for me personally, I need to focus on one thing at a time. Otherwise I'll just get all kinds of messed up. So I've just gone back to it with, the added structure of like just waking up super early. And I think that combination is really, really working for me. So yeah.
Excellent. Very good.
I watched the Resident Evil video. It was very good. Shout out to that. Make sure everyone should go watch that video.
I made that in a day. I felt pretty good about that.
It was great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's unusual for you.
Yeah, it is. Totally.
Because you're so persnickety.
Yeah. I had to cut things out and let things go, but whatever.
All right. Let's see here. Oh, Sacred Symbols Plus. Got to pimp that out, of course. Our weekly Patreon exclusive additional episode of Sacred Symbols. Last week I did a solo mailbag. I was going to have Chris do a solo mailbag this week. I think I'm going to push that to next week because of all the GameStop related stuff. And we're going to talk about that in the news. I don't want to even get into that right now. And I don't even want to get into it too much in the show because when you really think about it, it has nothing to do with the show.
No.
But of course I know people are going to listen to it with the intention of of thinking it's going to be in here. And so I want to make sure to satiate that demand, but we're going to do a whole episode about it. Just me, and you guys can join if you want, but, I'm going to I'm actually pretty excited about this because Richard Hogue is coming back onto the show. We had him, on Sacred Symbols Plus, I think last year, to talk about kind of some legalities of something that was happening or whatever, but he's a lawyer and he does Virtual Legality, which is a really cool YouTube show. He lives in Michigan, I think. And, he's agreed to come on and talk to us about, I'm kind of a finance guy, but it gets way deeper than I understand. And certainly I don't understand the legal side of it. So I think that'll be cool.
That sounds awesome.
People seem to be interested in that, and they've been asking for more guests. I've also reached out. A lot of people have been asking me to reach out to a specific YouTuber that I actually really like, Mystic Ryan Benecki or whatever his name is. Do you guys know him? He's like a really popular PlayStation YouTuber, and I've asked him to maybe join us for an episode as well. So hopefully we'll be able to set that up in the coming weeks. His stuff's really good. He just did a video about finding people online to play with PS3 games, like what PS3 games are still populated and stuff. It was pretty cool. So people can go check that out if they'd like. All right. Everything's on video. I'm just reading the notes out loud here. Oh, Habroxia too.
Yeah.
Hey.
Very soon. Very soon. That's the game that I wrote, and Lilymo Games, my developer I co-own, I should say, with Barry Johnson. It's an arcade space shooter. We're getting great feedback, I must say. It's not time for the embargo to lift yet, but it's my game, so I'll break the embargo and say we're getting very good feedback on the game. I'm really excited. February 3rd, PS4, Vita, Xbox One, Switch, PC.
Crazy.
Emphasis on Vita.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very excited. And you're making a trailer for us.
That's
Dustin.
right. I have a cut of it that I've just been letting sit for the last 18 hours, and I'm going to return to it and see if it's still good.
Cool.
And then we will proceed from there.
I'm looking forward to it. All right. Let's get into some questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience, and some other things we need to touch on before we get into what we're playing. And I want to say ahead of time, by the way, guys, just to, in case anyone's looking forward to this part of the show, I've just eliminated for this week the kind of interesting game section we've been doing, just because I feel like there's nothing coming out, and I feel like now it's like we're forcing things in a little bit. So I'll bring it back when I feel like more games are being published. I'll bring it back next week just so we can recommend Hyroxia, but just wanted to say that at the top.
I'm not recommending it.
Yeah, Dustin refuses.
I'm just not. I'm not chilling.
You don't have to. I mean, it's fine.
Maybe I will. I'll think about it.
Cole, you're in the game and you're in the credits.
That
Chris
is
also
true.
in the game. So
yeah,
they're both astronauts that you can rescue. They're collectible astronauts to find.
Or kill, right? They can kill me?
You can kill them
Hell
too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck us up. Yeah.
The stronger you make your ship, like the astronauts can take a few hits, but when your ship gets like crazy powerful and you're just destroying shit in the game, you just murdered the astronaut in like no time at all. So gotta be very careful later on. All right. Cold IV wrote into us about something. I wanted to just bring this up real quick. It's procedural about our show and the way people submit questions. He says, "Sup guys, this question is more for Colin since you select the questions and comments for the show. In all honesty, is your selection process neutral across the board for all patrons? Meaning, could there even be a slight bias to select inquiries from higher tier patrons than lower ones at the $1 or $2 level? I, for one, have written many times in vain, but more so I have seen others write with few people replying to their thread and interested in their question, yet they never see the light of day. Or could it be you don't have time to read through hundreds of questions, because that's definitely understandable. If I get banned for asking an honest question, so be it. Good day, guys." All right, so I want to address this real quick. I think I've addressed it in the past, but I feel bad when people feel like their questions aren't being answered. Cold Eye, you know how I say sometimes, guys, that every so often you have to be that guy. It's everyone's turn, right? You trip on the street and fall, like, you know, that's and as people see you, it's your turn to be that guy. And Cold Eye, it's your turn to be that guy. Because if you go and listen to the way I read your question, Cold Eye, then go and look at the question you submitted on Patreon and tell me if the way I read it reflects the way you wrote it, or if maybe I rewrote it to be more coherent and make more sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a little bit of a sign, not insulting anyone. It's an instruction that people who get their questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas read on the show are writing things that I can go and quickly, because I do read everything everyone submits. I do. I read it all. But it's easier for me to go and grab short things, curt things, pithy things, things that are topical, not the 10th question in a row, and certainly not things that are written like where I can't even understand what they're saying. So, Cold Eye, you're that guy today, and I'm sorry. You're not banned, but you're that guy today.
Yeah, well,
You're just publicly embarrassed.
Yeah, it's better than being banned, you know.
Yeah, it's better. I mean, would you rather be banned from the show, or would you rather be embarrassed publicly?
Well, and I think it's important to point out that we would have to look up each individual patron to see what their level is. It doesn't say on your comment what level you are.
Oh, yeah, that's true, too. So, yeah, I did want to say that real quick. No, I don't ever look at that. The only time, I've said this to people before, too, I never even look at that when I answer every individual DM we get, as Dustin knows. Whether it's a customer service request or just someone writing in or whatever, I never even look at that for people unless it's germane to what they're asking me. So, no, I don't look at that. I don't care. I think if you just hear names over and over again on the show, or familiar names every so often, just, I think, do the work and look at me if you care enough. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't care enough personally, but if you cared enough, like, go look at why they're getting their stuff read. And it's usually because it's topical. They understand. There are people out there that definitely know how to game the system, right? But I'm weak and I'm going to let them do it. just a little bit.
Yeah, it's just important to have things that you can coherently, read through really quickly. Because I know on our Snark Tank podcast, whenever I get questions that I just can't fathom, I just go ahead and rewrite them anyway. But that is a bit. That's nice of you. That's a lot of work, especially for the amount of questions there are.
I do the best I can, and I know that I read Cold Eye's stuff on the show in the past for sure. But I'll keep an eye on and see if you have any market improvement. Much like a teacher with his or her little book, and they put the little check marks, or maybe you'll get a check mark and a plus.
Oh,
next time.
I forgot about those.
I used to like playing school when I was a kid. Like we had like a blackboard in the basement, and I had like the letter cards and stuff. And I used to be obsessed with like getting one of those books and like writing in them because they seemed so cool. And then my sisters are both teachers, and I was asking them recently, and they're like, "Oh, we don't use that anymore." Like now it's all like digital.
Yeah.
So. All right. Daniel Gutter wrote into us and said, "Hello, never answer my inquiry, Colin and sexy madman Chris. This is probably my 10th attempt to write to you guys, and I want an explanation. Have a good day, lads." Well,
that's it.
There you go.
Well, there you go. At least you don't have to be that guy.
Yeah.
Daniel, you escaped. Alex Bolton wrote in, he said, update on the NHL TV app situation. So for people that were that listened to last week's show, we went into like why this guy couldn't find an app on PlayStation 5 that I literally have used, and he insisted did not exist. He says, "I swear the PS5 app was not on the PS Store. I swear by it. But after the episode last week, I looked it up again, and there it was. PS5 app. What kind of black magic fuckery are you all planning here or pulling here?" Anyways, I downloaded it, watched my games gleefully. The Bruins have won every game since. I've started watching on PS5, so thanks for the win, boys. Well, glad we can get that straightened out for you, Alex. Quickly, guys, I wanted to just go over the DICE nominations for the DICE Awards. This is, of course, the Academy of Interactive Arts and Science Awards that they do. It's 24th annual. These are probably I would say these are the Academy Awards of the video game industry, as opposed to the Game Awards, which is probably more like the Golden Globes.
Yeah,
I would say.
I think that's a right comparison.
I just want to say at the top, because we're a PlayStation podcast, PlayStation absolutely dominated. I think it's something like more than half of the game nominations are PlayStation exclusives, which is crazy. But I just wanted to encourage people to go look at these. Does anything stand out to you guys on this list? There's like, animation and art direction, character design, there's all sorts of stuff on here. And basically it's The Last of Us, Spider-Man, Final Fantasy VII, and Ghost of Tsushima, and a bunch of these. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, this just looks like, I'm sure this is like a lot more prestigious, and I think this probably definitely doesn't matter a lot more than, the Game Awards, as much as I like Jeff Keighley. But, this, it looks about exactly like I would have expected it to look, like nothing about it. Like when I read through it, I was like, yeah, this makes sense. Like I wasn't.
Yeah, there's nothing on here really that's too surprising to me. What do you think, Dustin?
Yeah, I'm happy to see like 13 Sentinels in story, which that was at the Game Awards also, but well deserved to be on there. They're a bunch of cowards for not putting Half-Life Alyx as a nomination for Game of the Year, which is also, I just think, heinous.
Yeah, and it got game direction and game design, so you would assume therefore what does it?
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't really make any sense. Why would that's what they say in the NFL? But when someone wins the MVP of the league, but not like what I don't know, something like it's like doesn't make any sense after a while.
Yeah, it's weird too because like Half-Life Alyx is nominated for like this is the one that I really like, the immersive reality technical achievement, which is like I think Half-Life Alyx is there for, and along with like Mario Kart Live and Museum of Other Realities and Paper Beast. I remember Paper Beast from like a while ago. But what's weird about it is that all these other games have, like Mario Kart Live has like, Velen Studios and like producers, blah, 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 game director, blah, 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 developers. And like all these other things have like credits. And then Half-Life Alyx just says Valve and then nothing. It's like very, very weird.
Yeah, it just should say the guys that made Firewatch.
Yeah, it's Valve.
Wow.
Who knew? Yeah, so Game of the Year is Animal Crossing, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, and The Last of Us Part 2, so it's going to be, I would assume, between Hades and The Last of Us, but
yeah, I would assume.
We'll see. We will see. Actual sophisticated people apparently vote for these, so We'll find out.
Who is it?
How sophisticated they are, I guess. If they're amply sophisticated, then The Last of Us should win easily.
I don't know, man. Hades is pretty fucking great.
I know.
That's a shame.
Just trying
it's a shame, though, man.
everyone.
I wish it was on PlayStation.
I'm sure it will. Yeah, some people were like, well, Hades is Game of the Year. And I'm like, but we're a PlayStation.
Yeah, no,
podcast.
exactly.
I'm not going to nominate Hades
No, exactly.
for Game of the Year. I just wanted to put out a little PSA real quick. Utawarerumono, which are basically these like visual novels / strategy role-playing games that are, fairly popular with weeb and weeb circles like Dustin. And my girlfriend Mike is actually a fan of these games. These games have both been delisted from PlayStation Network for both PS4 and PS Vita. So Mask of Deception and Mask of Truth are no longer available. So I would imagine the physical versions of those are going to skyrocket in cost now, and you will still have access if you have already purchased them, and even if you haven't downloaded them. But I just wanted to let everyone know in case you were curious. And Micah calls the series Utawarerumono, which
wow.
which annoys the shit out of me because she thinks she's real funny. All right, Playdead. I wanted to bring this up for Chris.
Yeah,
they put up a job listing, and the job listing read in part, quote, "Third-person science fiction adventure set in a remote corner of the universe," end quote. It's apparently being made on Unreal, and we don't know anything else about it. They haven't released a game in 5 years, and we know that this game is being published by Epic. But I'm just curious if you, I know you're a big fan of Limbo and Inside, so I was just curious if you, if this did anything for you, if even just this little tantalizing hint.
Yeah,
did anything for you.
I'm happy to see that they're doing something again. I'm happy to see that I can expect a Playdead game in the future. But I'll be real, like the description of this sounds really, by the numbers and a little disappointing. I assume like what we end up with is probably going to be a lot more interesting than what this, very minimal blurb is describing. But third-person science fiction action adventure set in a remote corner of the universe sounds like, I don't know, like 2 million games, So like I don't.
That's true.
I don't know.
But isn't it interesting that they're gonna do a third-person game? I mean, I didn't anticipate that. I didn't think they were gonna do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm expecting something a little bit more akin to like Little Nightmares than I am like fucking, what is it, like Gears? Like I don't think they're gonna make Gears of War.
Uncharted.
Like, but yeah, I think it's interesting. I don't know. Like I'm happy to see that they're around again, but that's not exactly the most exciting news that I could get. I'll wait until they have something to show proper, but before I have any semblance of excitement for it. But it's nice to know that they're still around and they haven't been like nuked by anything. Or
yeah, they've been quiet. I mean, I was reading a little bit because I didn't remember when this was even first teased, and apparently it was teased like at GDC in 2017, which I don't even remember.
Yeah,
so,
I don't remember that either.
But I was a big fan of Inside. I was less a fan of Limbo, but I really like Inside a lot. Dustin, are you a fan of Playdead?
I am. I think they're a hair overrated, but I think what they make is good. So, but I was thinking about what Chris, what you're saying about the description. It like activated something in my brain that like both Limbo and Inside have like not very similar. I guess the one for this new game is maybe more generic, but like Limbo's description is uncertain of his sister's fate, a boy enters limbo. And Inside is hunted and alone, a boy finds himself drawn into the center of a dark project. So I'm wondering if that's just kind of their shtick. I wonder if that will always be the description of the game, even when it releases.
Yeah, I would argue those two are still more interesting than, third-person science fiction adventure or in a remote corner of the universe, But yeah, I mean, that's obviously more of a finalized description of what the game is. This is just like a premise, basically, like what they're going with. Not even a premise in story or tone, but just like a premise in style. Right. So I don't know. It's nice to see that they're around. I can always go for some Playdead.
Do you guys remember how they released that? I guess it would be giving away the end of Inside, but they did that collaboration with the sex doll company. Do you guys remember that?
No, I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, no. There's a thing in the game that they made a sex doll company made a version of it.
What the?
And it's supposed.
Oh, like the end thing.
Yeah,
that's gross.
And it's supposed to, feel like skin.
That's horrifying. I had no idea.
I kind of think it's
I'm not even gonna look it up.
Maybe I'm not excited about this new Playdead game. Maybe just go. Never mind. They're no longer a studio that I care about.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna look it up.
I am
because I don't want to know. I'm sure you will.
Oh,
all right. Let's bring it back down to earth here and away from this remote corner of the universe. Dustin's looking at it. I don't know why he's doing that to himself. Why are you doing it? I mean, you're the one who knew it existed. You already knew it.
I just can't resist looking things up. I mean, I just can't.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Not.
The FBI's onto you, son. So, all right. Let's see here. Dylan Michael wrote in. Let's get serious here. Let's help Dylan out. Says, "Hey, C's. I just broke up with my girlfriend of 10 months who I honestly feel like wasn't treating me with the same kindness I was treating her. I know 10 months isn't that long, but it still hurts. Any advice to get over the sadness of a breakup?" Dustin, hit me with some advice, some sage advice for Dylan.
So when I was in high school, I broke up with a girl for the exact same reason. Only it was a lot longer. I think it was closer to 2 years. And so now let's see. Dylan here says, I just broke up with my girlfriend. So he's the one doing the breaking, which is not easy either.
No.
No. And if it's not, then there's either it's a really bad relationship or you're, I don't know, mean. Not like just to hurt someone like that is never easy. So as far as getting over it, I think the key is just to let yourself feel things, in your own way. Don't try to block it out because that's just going to suppress it and drag things out. You got to let yourself feel the feelings and work through it in the way that you can. But at the same time, there's also a time for moving on. So it's that progression of feeling what you need to feel, analyzing the situation, and then moving on to the next step.
How about what do you have to add to this, Chris?
Suppress everything. Keep it bottled up inside and die at 55 of a brain aneurysm.
Whew. Wow. Those are two different pieces of advice.
Honestly, I think I like Chris's better.
Go in.
If I'm being real.
Dustin's definitely right.
I think,
but
yeah, of course.
I agree with Dustin entirely. So I don't know what else to really add to it.
Yeah, I know, I felt the sadness of a breakup on more than one occasion. And every time it happens, you can't imagine getting over it.
Yeah.
Not even necessarily the person, but the pain, right? And then it just like fades. You just have to give yourself time. And then this insurmountable, I remember how much pain I felt when I broke up with my girlfriend in college, and it just unimaginable anguish, like Shakespearean anguish. And I can barely even remember what it was like to be in that relationship anymore. It's just, you got to give yourself a little bit of time, a little bit of distance, and understand that you identified something that I've identified in previous relationships. And I think like Dustin said, I think we all have, which is sometimes you're with people that are just not good for you or not good to you, and you need to get out of those situations. So count yourself, Dylan, amongst the lucky survivors, because a lot of people stay in relationships that are unhealthy way beyond 10 months, more like 10 years or more before they ever do anything. You be married for 10 years with kids and feel this way and just keep it. I even know people that feel this way in their relationships. Nonetheless, just the masses out there, you know? So just be patient for the right one.
Yeah.
And be thankful that if you're not meant to be with a person, you got to let go of that whole notion that it could have worked out or it should have, or what could you have done differently? Because it's just going to make itself material or not in your life. It's okay, Dylan.
Yeah.
Everything's going to be okay. All right, boys. Let's bring it back up a notch and talk about what we're playing here. Chris, I throw it over to you. It says you're both playing Hitman 3, so we can talk more about that right now. Chris, we'll throw it to you first. I know we discussed it a little bit last week, but what do you have to add?
Oh man, I still really love it. I'm having so much fun just going back and redoing the same exact missions over and over again and trying to find completely different ways to I feel like this is to me the strongest one Not only because it allows you to experience the previous ones in like a, higher res and like a better frame rate and all that magic, but, even just the game itself is just a lot more coherent, I think. Like narratively, it clicks a little bit more with me. I think the level design is really good. I think the scenarios that they've come up with are really, really entertaining and really, really, just it feels like I have more choice in a small mansion than I do in like a lot of like open world games, and it's really just a really satisfying game to play, especially because, and I know I've said this a million times, but stealth is just not really a lively genre these days, and Hitman's really the only thing doing it, and doing it really, really well. I would like there to be some kind of competition, just so I can get more of this kind of thing. But I really love it. I think they've really hit the nail on the head with this one. And it's not even like I thought the previous ones were all that bad either. Like, I actually really like the Hitman 1 and 2, but something about this one, something about the scenarios that it puts you in, something about the look of these places, like this British manor, or this like nightclub in the middle of the woods, or like, this giant tower and this giant skyscraper in Dubai or whatever the hell. It's just really fun stealth. And I don't know, I really love it.
What do you think about it, Dustin? This is the game everyone's clamoring for right now.
Right. Yeah. I've only played the first 2 levels of this game, and it's not because I haven't been playing it. I just get obsessed with wanting to do the same level over and over. I just played the second level last night, and I don't want to spoil anything about it for people who haven't played it.
So good.
But what's so good about it is that this is the third game, and I mean, if we're being honest, it's the same format over and over. But this second level in Hitman 3 is totally like unlike any other level that they've ever done, and it was so unexpected and so well done, and it just turned the formula like completely on its head. And I'm just so amazed, and it was one of those moments that as I was playing the mission, I was like, oh my god, there's still so much more of this game for me to play. So
yeah.
But yeah, so Chris, I'm getting the yes look from you for this level.
No, yeah, I mean, obviously we won't spoil it, but like the second level of Hitman 3 is some of the most strikingly clever game design I've ever seen. It is so smart with the way that it, like, everything about it is pretty goddamn pristine. It's really good. Really, really good. If anybody even has the chance to play that one level, then I think it would be worth it. It's so good.
Right. And that's what I think is so good about this game, is that you can play through and it can guide you along, and it doesn't make you feel stupid. In fact, I feel like this game makes you feel really smart all the time. And that's what's so good, is that you can follow along. As I was saying, they kind of have these story, I can't remember what it's called, but basically there's like some preset paths that they'll kind of guide you along to do it. Or you can just do your own thing. And I honestly, like, half the time I like to just play the game like an idiot and figure out like, oh, if I stand right here, will the target appear here and I can snipe him with a silenced pistol and then walk out. Like, it's just so diverse in how you can choose to play the game. And I'm just so excited because it was really successful. I think that's later in the news. But they're being rewarded for this fantastic game.
Yeah, I'm super happy everyone is enjoying it, and I think it's just, again, it's the right time to release a game like this.
Yes.
Although it seems extra quiet this year, which is so peculiar because the new consoles are out.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's extra quiet. I'd have to go look at the numbers, but I feel like fewer games are definitely coming this year than in January than previous Januaries.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right about that.
Which is nice because I actually don't feel overwhelmed for the first time in a long time recently, which is, again, weird because the PS5's out, but unfortunately has no games. Sorry, guys. All right, so a few other things here to get through. Maneater. Chris, it says you're playing Maneater. I happen to have gotten that platinum trophy in Maneater last week. Very exciting. So, which I think was platinum number 112 for me. Very exciting. And so, Chris, what did you think of your experience with Maneater?
It's fun. I have no idea what I'm doing really, but I like.
I told you it's that kind of game where you don't even really know if you're playing it.
Yeah,
right.
no, I totally understand what you're saying. Like, because I think, like, I haven't even really played it that much, because Hitman's really been like dominating a lot of my time. But every now and then I'll jump into Maneater, and I think I have to kill this like shark, but it's kicking my ass. It's a. No, it's a crocodile or like an alligator that's like just completely kicking my ass. And I have no idea how to, like, I don't know what to do. I just keep attacking it. And I think I'm playing it right, but it just ends up mauling the shit out of me. But I'm not not having fun. You know, I'm just getting mauled by this alligator. And I'm
you just gotta level up a little bit.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about early in the bayou in the game. And yeah, it is one of the, because it's all on the R2 button. The game is exhausting to play, by the way. Like there were a few times where I'm like, I can't play this anymore because you're just jamming. The tapping is with your thumb in video games. It's really much weirder to do it with your trigger finger and like hitting it like you're hitting the square button, but you have to play the game like that. And yeah, it's kind of just a wild game. It's just not in the Chris Raygun wild sense. It's just the game is wild. Like it just, the shark is just doing what he does, and he just kind of gravitates towards attacking ships and attacking whoever you want. But you realize, you kind of finesse it later on. You realize you can hold down the R2 button to like hold things and spit them. And it's so good. And I love the whole meta game, or the whole meta like TV show that's going on behind it. And they have like the fake hashtags and stuff. It's so funny.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole other thing, which is totally separate from the game, which I actually really like, which is where there are these 10 bounty hunters that are also going after you. And the more damage you do, the like each bounty hunter in succession comes after you. So that's like a whole nother part of the game that has really nothing to do with the main plot. But like the more you kill people and the more damage you do, these like different characters come out. Like there's this like fat black woman with like a harpoon gun, and he comes out and tries to get you and shit.
Yeah.
So it's did you play it, Dustin? Have you tried out Maneater yet?
I played it when it originally came out, but I was
on PS4.
Yeah, I was capturing footage and it wasn't like the ideal experience. But I don't know. I'm kind of intrigued by this idea to go back. I just remember what you were saying, like so much of it is like hitting the trigger buttons over and over. I remember being, like you said, exhausted.
It hurts to play.
Yeah.
Like, at least me, I don't know.
It is exhausting. Like that was something I noticed. I was like, I thought that's one of the reasons I thought I was playing it wrong. I was like, should I be like, I surely the game doesn't want me to hit this button as much as I'm hitting it, but I feel compelled to because I feel like that works. But it felt wrong at the same time. So it was like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm doing it right. But I really love the presentation of it, the Chris Parnell dialogue and just the like. It nails the tone that it's going for so well that it is just always a good time.
I agree. And can you see now what I'm saying about like a game where you play as a polar bear or something, like some other like ridiculous sequel? I hope that they do something like that.
I hope you get a Chupacabra in the next one.
No, that'd be cool.
Suck a bunch of
Jersey
woods,
Devil.
you know?
Yeah. Although there was I said Jersey Devil, but there was a game called Jersey Devil. I'm sure you guys remember. The classic PS1 game, Jersey Devil. All right. Another one here, Dustin. We've been playing a lot of games here. Everyone's just playing a lot of games, I guess. You got the platinum in Sekiro. I actually saw this. It's very impressive. This is supposed to be the hardest From Software platinum I've heard. But I don't know how you feel about that proclamation. But nonetheless, congratulations. Talk to me.
Thank you. Yeah. I don't know if it's the hardest platinum, because I know that some of the Dark Souls games get very grindy where you have to farm materials for hours.
You've never heard this though? Someone say this about Sekiro? I've heard it. I'm going to look.
It's always debatable. I personally think as far as like the game itself outside of the platinum, I think that Sekiro is the hardest From Software game of the ones that I've played.
Maybe that's what they're saying. Yeah.
So yeah, it was overall a very enjoyable platinum to get. I am kind of out of the trophy platinum game, but this is something that I felt compelled to do. So overall, it's not crazy. I mean, over the fact of playing Sekiro. If you are able to go through and beat the game, then you can definitely get the platinum for this. The main annoyance, though, Colin, is all the trophies pretty reasonable. And you can even do it in like, you're supposed to do all 4 endings and play through the game 4 times, which sounds bad. But once you get into New Game Plus, you can blitz through the game in a sitting. If you've, gotten the skills to do it, you have all the healing items. So you're good at that point. But the way that they do the XP system, one of the trophies is get all of the abilities in the game, which you get through XP. And even when I was on New Game Plus 4, I had to grind for probably, I don't know, a few hours of just killing the same enemy and reloading over and over again. So that was a little bit of an annoyance to me, like a little bit of bad XP economy.
Yeah, checkpoint farming is like the worst. But
yes.
What's even worse is when you can't checkpoint farm. And then you got to go through like an entire stage to get the save friggin' circle to come up on your screen so it knows that you found the fucking collectible or whatever. I said that really angry. I don't know why I was so angry
it's
about
an
that,
infuriating subject. I'm sure it has a lot of trauma associated with it.
Yeah.
But Sekiro is pretty good about that. The checkpoints that they give you, like as far as like, what is a reasonable amount of time to go without a checkpoint. I think Sekiro is actually masterfully done in that way. Because even though like I've heard that too, like that Sekiro is like the hardest one, and it's weird because I didn't feel that way. Maybe it's just because I jived with it a little bit more, and it was just more my kind of game, so I didn't find it as much of a hindrance to play it. But I always felt that just because of how that game handled the checkpoint system and how like fairly it was spread apart, I was like, this doesn't feel, it's challenging certainly, but like I don't feel it was like hard in a particularly defeatist way,
Right. Yeah, I think that my theory is that a lot of that is propagated, I mean myself included, from people who have played other From Software games, and so they go into Sekiro and initially they try to play it like it's Dark Souls or Bloodborne.
Right.
And this game will simply not let you do that. You can get through first couple bosses, maybe a third of the game. It eventually gets to the point that's like, no, you can't dodge around. You have to learn this blocking system. And I hated it for a long time for that, until eventually it like clicked in my brain. That's like, no, you can't play this like Bloodborne. And so I don't know. I'm just it made me really, really excited for Elden Ring. Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping that we get news about it this year, because it's kind of gone totally MIA. I
still haven't finished Sekiro. I don't know what the hell happened. I got like sucked away by like 10 million other games. But I love Sekiro, and I haven't even, I gotta get around to it. Maybe I'll do that this week. Plow through it.
I looked it up. I was totally wrong. Sekiro is the easiest by percentage platinum that From Software has done in the Souls games anyway, 9.2%. The rarest is Demon Souls, the original, at 3.1%. So about 3 times rarer, which I guess makes some level of sense. It's funny you keep talking about Elden Ring though, because in my heart, I know it's not going to happen, but in my heart, I kind of hope Elden Ring is just like an open world role playing game, like a normal game, not some bullshit. Because that's what From Software always gets off on, is just some bullshit.
Sekiro is not some bullshit. Sekiro is great,
but you know what I mean. But I can't get. It's too much, because it's like what you were saying. Like when I played Bloodborne finally in 2017 and like really sat with it, it was like my job. I was like, I gotta. This game's making me sweat and it's infuriating me, and I gotta go for a walk or some shit, and I gotta get back. I can't play games like that.
But what's interesting, and this is a good segue, is that I was like, okay, the Sekiro Platinum, I had some hardships, but overall, mostly painless for me in the end. But this other game, Cyber Shadow, was destroying me very early on. So I'm interested, Colin, since you're saying like, you're not interested in, or more frustrated with a game like Sekiro, how you're finding Cyber Shadow, since that's kind of where your skills lie in those retro platformers.
Yeah, that's a place I'm comfortable. I think that's the thing, is just probably what you're comfortable with.
Right.
And a lot of people wanted to talk to us about this game. I want to give a shout out to Austin Clements, who wrote into us and said, hey, Big Daddy Colin and Big Boy Chris, Dustin's here too. I'm not very versed in the 2D side-scroller genre. I enjoy Symphony of the Night and Shovel Knight, but other than that, I don't play side scrollers. I picked up Cyber Shadow, and man, can we talk about how special that game is. With a diverse set of abilities by the end of the game, amazing levels, and a phenomenal soundtrack, more people need to play this game. Is this an early Colin Game of the Year contender? Anyway, I hope you guys are enjoying the new year, and thank you for how much content you guys churn out. You guys are the best. Thank you, Austin. So yeah, Cyber Shadow just came out finally. This game's actually been kind of percolating for a while. It's from Mechanical Head Studios, which is basically just one dude. A lot of people are confused. They think this is a Yacht Club developed game, but Yacht Club published this game. This is the first game that Yacht Club published. That's not a Shovel Knight game, but they didn't make it. They readily identified that this game was going to be awesome, which they have, obviously the the ability to do with the games they make. But this game is exceptional, and it's really hard. And maybe it's just hypocritical. I like hard 2D games because I'm good at them, so they don't get, generally speaking, so they don't frustrate me to the level that I think hard or equally hard, notoriously hard 3D games bother me. So what I like about Cyber Shadow is the complete mixture of influences. It's incredible that it's a Mega Man game in a lot of ways, but you're playing as like Ninja Gaiden, like Ryu Hayabusa. So a lot of it is like up close and personal sword swipes and things of this nature, kind of the up and attack Castlevania / Ninja Gaiden style special attacks, and some non-linearity, very Castlevania type map that they show you. You can obviously backtrack in the game. It's modern in that way, and it's just really, really good. And people have been calling out, and I know that Mechanical Head has talked about this, but there's a lot of interesting influences in this game, including like Sunsoft Batman on the NES, which is a famous Batman game from that era. Incredibly influential on this game, you can tell, and that's a really, really good game. I feel like Mega Man 3 and Mega Man 4 are big influences on this game. You can tell that this is a nerd, like my kind of nerd, that made this game. And
it looks gorgeous.
It's gorgeous. It's fast. It sounds great. It's not that hard. I think that I would even argue it like that it's no harder than the Curse of the Moon Bloodstained games. It takes a little bit of patience, and I think the biggest effect that people are experiencing is the very Castlevania-like knockback in this game, which is profound, and people are gonna have to learn how to handle that. I mean, it's very Ninja Gaiden-like too, but I see that you're how far? I mean, are you enjoying yourself playing it, Dustin? Or
so I had a weird experience where I was really frustrated early on, specifically chapter 2. And then as I felt like the game somewhat got easier after that level. And I'm wondering what you think about this, because specifically in chapter 2, there are these enemies that are like moths that fly around. And so not only are they annoying because they'll fly around and hit you, and then the knockback situation will happen where they'll push you into something and then you die. But I was getting really frustrated with that enemy specifically, and there's a section of that level where you're on an elevator, and I was like getting very frustrated. But that enemy is like, I'm sure they appeared again at some point in the game, but in the 2 or 3 levels after that, I didn't notice them, and found that I thought that the game was more enjoyable because that enemy was so annoying to me. So
yeah. I know the exact enemy you're talking about. Actually, there's a trophy attached to getting through that elevator part without killing any of them, and
wow. Yeah.
Which I think I'm gonna try to go for this platinum trophy, because I think Shovel Knight is the hardest platinum I have, which I didn't really even find very hard, but a lot of people did, and I think it's just like I found other platinums I've had that I've gotten way harder, but they're more common. So I think this just speaks to my specific skill set. But yeah, is it now? Austin asks, is it an early? I mean, it is my game of the year so far. It's January, but certainly that's now the game to beat for me. And yeah, congratulations to them. I mean, very affordable at $20. I think it's actually on sale for PS Plus. It was in the pre-order anyway, and I don't know. I was blown away by this game. I'm really blown away by it. It's awesome. I think some of the things it does are. I actually think the weakest part of the game are the boss fights. I think that the stage layout and all the enemy designs are way more interesting than a lot of the other stuff the game does. It also has this, I hate to say this because I like 2D stories. I'm trying to make them myself. I'm not trying to be an asshole at all. It's a good story, but I feel like it's almost too in your face. It's like, all right, like I wanted to, come on, man. Like, this is a game I want to just play it. I don't even know what's going on. I don't care.
Right.
But that might just be me.
Yeah. And for the audience, if you have Xbox Game Pass, it's available on there for both console and PC. So.
Oh, shit.
Nice. There you go. So go grab that. And otherwise, I've just still been playing Danganronpa 2. Nothing more to say about that right now. And I actually booted up Final Fantasy 15 the other day and started playing that. And I'm like a few hours into it. I have no idea why I did that, but it's fine. I mean, it's, I'm broing out with my bros, my dudes, my guys. So maybe I'll have more to say about that.
This looks.
Oh, Cyber Channel?
It reminds me a lot of a game I used to play on the NES. I think it was a Natsume game. It was Shadow of the Ninja.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that because he says that is the intended influence of the game.
Holy shit.
It's just that is a more it is a Natsume game, a more niche game.
That is awesome.
And Natsume, of course, would become later famous for Harvest Moon and all that. But no, it's so funny you say that because that is the influence. And it's funny that game because I'm such an NES nerd, but that is kind of a seldom.
Is that a niche game? Like, I mean, I guess it is because I haven't heard people talk about it.
I would say it's probably in the mid tier. There are some really obscure NES games that you're like, I don't even know, and like NES games that were sold and on shelves and stuff. But I'm just like, I don't encounter them anymore because I'm so into it. But back when I was a kid, even in my 20s, I was like, what the fuck is Galaxy 9000? What the fuck is that? And then you look it up and you're like, oh, yeah, I guess this was a game.
I guess the overall catalog is pretty absurdly big, but yeah, no, I just had that game and I loved it. And I was like, I'm looking at this like trailer for it or this like gameplay footage of this, and it's just like, this looks like starkly like it. And I was just like remembering it. So that's awesome to know that it's always nice to learn that you have apparently niche knowledge on something without realizing that it's niche.
That's I think that's the way everyone's childhood experience is. It's just like whatever random assortment of things that you had at your disposal is like what you remember. And that's like the key to your world, Yeah. And for you, that was one of those games, But I bet you that game sold in the West 50,000 copies or something. So, but that was back in the day when they would just print shit and then that was the end. All right. Boys, let's get into the news. Everyone wants us to talk about GameStop. I'm actually really interested to hear what you guys have to say about this. Now, I want to say at the top a couple of things. This is going to be an inherently political conversation. Finance is political. I don't think it's going to be partisan, but I know that some people shy away from politics, and I don't know how to talk about this without talking about politics.
Yeah.
The other thing is that I am not involved in this. I don't have GameStop. I didn't even try to buy in on GameStop. So there's no conflict there, although I did get some messages from people saying that when I brought up that game, because I expected GameStop to go up. People know that I brought it up on the show, that I thought it would be maybe get it at 8 or 10, maybe sell it at 20, during the console launch and put a nice little amount of, I didn't think it was going to be this, but people wrote in and thanked me for bringing it up because they bought shares at that point, including one dude. He said he made enough money to put his kid through college. So
wow,
that's crazy.
Congratulations.
That's awesome.
I love it.
The market is a splendid thing because when something isn't quite up to snuff, something else comes along that takes its place. As we segue into 2021, you may want to consider that old adage when it comes to your cell phone plan, which you may have had for many years and maybe you don't even pay much attention to it, but you should, because a fresh competitor is on the scene, Mint Mobile, that can give you the great service you demand at a fraction of what you're paying with the big guys. Mint Mobile's plans start at a scant $15 a month, and they're so darn affordable because they've foregone a brick-and-mortar existence and run their operation entirely online. It's 2021 after all. That means everything is much cheaper for them, and that savings is passed on to you. But don't get it mixed up. Mint Mobile provides high-quality service with unlimited talk and text, as well as data plans that fit your needs and budget, all running on the country's largest 5G network. Now, you know me, I'm a bit of a doofus, but even I could navigate Mint Mobile's easy-to-use website where, after inserting just a little bit of information, like your zip code, you can begin to delve into Mint Mobile's options that make the most sense for you. I really like how unintimidating it all is, and I think that will appeal to you too. It's straightforward and easy, and yes, you keep your phone and your number when you make the switch. So why not get a new wireless plan starting at $15 a month with everything you need for the plan shipped to your door for free? Get on it, my friends. Head to mintmobile.com/sacred. That's MINTMOBILE.com/SACRED. poke around the website, and come out the other side with some savings. Again, that's mintmobile.com/sacred. To cut your wireless bill to $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/sacred. All right, let's go into it. Number one. Ailing games retailer GameStop has found itself at the center of global financial news, and it has literally nothing to do with the actual shape of its business, any of its initiatives, or its recent executive hires. Instead, it has everything to do with the company's position on the stock market and a battle between largely so-called retail investors like us and hedge funds that have shorted GameStop stock to such a degree that it became clear that in concert, retail investors could drive the price of the stock higher and higher, obliterating short sellers' positions while potentially reaping billions in profits from their pockets. Now, this is potentially dangerous for everyone involved, but especially short sellers who borrow shares at a given price under the expectation that the share price will fall. It's a gambling position like any other on the market, except you're betting a stock to fail. And when a stock is smartly shorted, they often do fail. Short sellers then return the borrowed shares at the lowered price and take the difference, which could be thousands, millions, or even billions of dollars. If things swing the other way, though, as they did in this case, those borrowed shares need to be returned at a much higher cost, meaning that if you short sell, your losses are conceivably unlimited. And that's the situation hedge funds and retail investors find themselves in, as a stock that was being shorted in the single digits spiked to a maximum valuation of nearly $500 a share, likely 50 times what the shares are actually worth. The system is being juiced even more because many people are buying and exchanging shares using so-called options, which is basically a fancy way of saying you pay for the shares later. This has another massive upside and downside potential. As such, the New York Stock Exchange, which holds GameStop, has sporadically halted trading, as have various brokerage houses, seemingly forcing the prices back down, potentially to bail out the hedge funds. So that's the best way that I can possibly explain this.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's sufficient for people out there, but because I know a lot of people are confused about like what short selling is and all this. And I think a lot of people got an education this week, which is awesome. Before I even get into any of this, I'm very curious what you guys think, because you guys, especially you, Chris, have been talking a lot about this online. So yeah. Let's start with you, Chris. What is your position on what's happening here and what it means for our industry and what it means for the memeability of our industry and all the rest?
I think this really just kind of goes to show how completely hypothetical a lot of this shit really is. Like, there's really no, like, the value of a company is entirely, like, it's just kind of entirely bullshit, and apparently, and it's just, it feels like this has just been like a huge, you know, man behind the curtain kind of moment where it's just like, oh yeah, this is entirely like meaningless. The idea that, like, because throughout this entire, like, we've been living in a pandemic for the last like almost year now, you know, and a lot of the excuses for not being too concerned with your average person are like, look, the stock market is doing kind of well in certain places. But it's like, if a company like GameStop can be valued at $10 billion in 2021 by the same market that people are using to determine whether or not your average person is doing okay, then you know pretty clear cut that that's not a good indication of how people are doing. And the fact that your average everyday like Reddit user just completely bankrupted a hedge fund out of like billions of dollars, I love that. I can't even pretend that I'm unhappy about it, because I mean, I'm all for, like, people can, I don't have a problem with like being rich, you know, like I ideally I would like all my friends to be rich. I love that, you know, have millions of dollars. That'd be great. But when you got like people who are just kind of like gambling with other people's money and just like sitting there being like, hey, you know, let's make a bet that a stock will fail and then intentionally short it into oblivion so that our bet is fulfilled. That, to me, that's not really like fair. And if it is fair, and then it's like just kind of legalized manipulation of the market. And now the fact that like your average everyday person is doing that, essentially the same thing, now it's a problem, whereas it wasn't for years when these people were doing it. Like, I don't know. I can't. There are people on TV right now, like broker people and like a bunch of hedge fund managers on TV being like, oh, you know, this is just a way to attack the wealthy. And it's like, yeah, probably. But like, maybe don't try and squeeze a business out of the, because that affects the business. You know, like, they can't get access to capital if they need it. If they're shorted 147%, dude, that is not only a dumb bet, to make, but also that's just wildly like cruel, especially especially in the middle of a pandemic when people are like, dude, you can short GameStop out and yeah, you'll make a lot of money if they fail, but like, do you really want to like just force this company out and like force a bunch of people into the unemployment line in the middle of a pandemic just so you can make like a couple more $1 billion so you can get an extra room for your yacht? Like, I don't know. It just seems like inherently cruel. And I just feel like, if you lost money on this, just like any individual investors on Reddit, if you lost money on this, that's you, And if you're a hedge fund who lost fucking everything, tough shit. That's the game you played. You don't get a bailout like I've seen like some people argue for. Like, that's just wild that they would even suggest that they deserve it.
Right. I do want to. No. Of course it is.
Yeah. I feel like
I do want to say real quick the bailout terminology.
Yeah, it's not a government bailout.
Right. It just for people out there that may be confused, because I understand a lot of people are upset by this because they don't understand the difference. Yeah. Right. When people say the hedge fund's going to get bailed out, what they mean is that another hedge fund is going to bail them out. And a hedge fund did try to bail them out and then lost all the money that they gave them in like a day. Yeah. So that's just bad money after bad. I don't feel bad about that. About that at all.
It's not a government bailout. Although that right. I wouldn't necessarily say that that's not impossible, as we've seen like in 2008 when like a bunch of people got bailed out for no real good reason, in my opinion. But I don't know, just the audacity to even sit there, like, even though it's not a government bailout, the audacity to be like, hey, I lost a lot of money on a bad bet that I made. Please help me. Even though like you're probably like sitting in some fucking ivory tower above the clouds in Dubai or whatever the fuck. Like, I don't know. I just can't, like, I can't muster up a tear for this.
That's a fair answer. What do you think, Dustin?
Yeah, I think that, I don't know. My relationship with the stock market is so minimal. Like, my account on Robinhood is under $500. I'm so risk averse that I feel like I don't know enough to make any smart decisions. So I just like play around. And so I had some money in this GameStop business. It was like $100 or something. So it was just like, let's see what happens. Maybe I can make $50 or something. But I think the thing that's bothering me the most about this whole situation is how we're seeing companies, and the big one in the spotlight is Robinhood, just completely, manipulate and not even manipulate, just completely block the free market from being able to purchase more shares if they like. Like, for example, I know that there's probably a lot of people that got stimulus money and maybe they put money in and made calls or whatever, or I don't know. And then I purely believe that today that the reason that the stock shot back down is because of the manipulation of these apps like Robinhood. Mm-hmm. And so they completely fucked a lot of people today. And I like I said, I don't know enough about stocks to be like what's legal and what's illegal. I just know that the fact that they're like, well, someone other than us is manipulating the stock market, so we're going to shut them down. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
People are already on the brink, right? Through this year, whether it be lockdowns, which are arguably ineffective, or I don't know, maybe we're getting too political now, but the impact on the economy, people are at the very end. And so for a lot of people, this was like, maybe there's a possibility. And then the rules are changed at the last moment. How much are people willing to put up with the rules being changed on them at the last minute? Yeah. You know what I mean?
It's a pretty obvious double standard, I think. Because these people who have like pretty much the world at their fingertips are afforded privileges that your average person are not. Like we didn't have, like, I remember some guy was like being like, they were suggesting like a halt to trading in general so bigger investors could recalibrate. And it's like, I couldn't recalibrate like when nearly any financial decision that I made was proven to be a bad one. Like, I didn't get like a recalibration like stat bonus, like it's I don't know. It's really irritating.
Right.
But it's not surprising, and I think it's kind of the sad thing. I'm not surprised by any of this. I'm just like, just the blatantness and the there's so much contempt for just like your average person. Like, well, it's wild.
Yeah.
I just
people have been beat up so much this year.
This year's been bad.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you can't work, but they can. You can't go to a restaurant, but your governor is at a restaurant and he said he was inside. Turns out, nope, he's not inside. Do you know what I mean? Oh, you want to invest in the stock market because it's a free market? Fuck you. You can't do that either. We're going to change the rules the last minute. When is enough enough? Like, I'm seriously like, I don't know. I don't remember or know enough about Occupy Wall Street, but I'm like, is this the begin? Like, are people that lost everything today, like, is this isn't the end for them? You know what I mean? Like, what's next after this?
Yeah, I think the bigger question just in the financial system is just how they react to this. Mm-hmm. Because I've been really interested in this. So, like, I didn't get involved in GameStop, but I did buy both Express and AMC.
Same.
And so here's the major. I did want to say this at the top, and I should say this too. We're not giving financial advice. You got to do what you got to do. It's your life. Yeah. But my dad used to tell me this when he first started kind of exposing me to financial markets and like how money works a little bit. Although I figured out a lot of it myself, and I want to talk about that in a minute too. But he's always said to me, you never put in what you cannot afford to lose ever.
Yep.
And if you want to play with money that you can't afford to lose, that's when you put it in FDIC insured safe investments or like just slow growth bonds and CDs and stuff like that. So I want to just say it at the top. It's no joke. You know, usually people don't really know what they're talking about when they say like, oh, I put $1,000 in the stock market and I lost it all. Well, you're not going to lose it all unless the stock is delisted.
Yeah.
Meaning the company is basically done. But you can lose almost everything, and you can lose everything too. So just be very safe. And I know a lot of people believe in the no risk it, no biscuit fun, like mentality, which is true in all gambling, but it's gambling nonetheless. It's the same as going into a casino. But over time, especially today, I just took a bunch of Post-its and like started writing notes about how I feel, like what is the message I want to get out about this? Because again, it's not necessarily important for our show, but it's something people want to talk about, and it's part of the zeitgeist right now. And I want to make a few points that I think people just need to hear, and then I'm going to take some positions that I think people are going to be surprised, although I think they're going to find out that I'm on their side here. So let me just get through it. First of all, hedge funds can be good, right? I think like hedge funds inherently are predatory on the market, but I think a lot of people, and I was listening to an economist talk about this last night, and I thought it was really illuminating. Hedge funds actually working at the margins remind regulators and bettors and everything what the margins are and like what kind of crazy shit is going on. And then they regulate it in. So having these people working on the margins and trying to kind of, it's a form of vulture capitalism, really. But some people argue that it's actually necessary for a functioning market to have that kind of vulture capital. It just shouldn't be working like this against normal people, right? The bets shouldn't be so extreme. Like taking out 147% against the company shouldn't even be legal, because that's not even possible. You can't even own, that many shares or whatever. So like they're manipulating the market. So I'm not protecting them. I'm just saying that I'm not one of those guys who's going to be like, fuck all the hedge funds, because the thing I want to say is that, and this is the thing that I'm scared of, by the time this podcast even goes live, I hope we don't start seeing stories like this. These guys, a lot of people are like, fuck the hedge funds, we got them. But you think these guys are going to eat the cost to this? Or are their clients going to eat the cost? And that's when things start getting interesting, because some of their clients are rich millionaire and billionaire, magnates. Some of their clients might be like, your local school union, or like the pension fund of the DMV of the state of Wyoming or something random like that, right? And then they're also out. And I feel like those are the kinds of stories that are going to start squeezing out. It's like, yeah, fuck the Melvin Capital guys, and I don't care. I don't give a fuck about those guys at all. But I don't know whose money they were holding. It's easy to say like it was all their money, but I don't think it was. And that's kind of the risky part. So I don't want to just like jump all in on that.
That's kind of even worse, though, that they were doing this with other, you know what I mean? Like I know.
Well, they're fun though. They're not.
That works.
Yeah.
But like it, I don't know. I'll let you go.
People are going in with their eyes wide open, right? When it's not, me and you are not giving hedge funds any money. We don't have enough money. People that are, so, but big organizations that need returns like pension funds, I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there. And someone made a really good point that I wanted to kind of regurgitate here, if I might, that I was reading. Short selling can also be good. And this was another thing that I was just reading about today. A guy named Jim Chanos. So everyone knows what Enron is. Yes. When there was an accounting fiasco, the likes of which the world had never really seen before. It was actually a short seller that discovered that all this was happening because he was trying to short Enron. And he realized that the books didn't make any sense and alerted the federal authorities to it. So sometimes when you have these guys like poking around at the margins trying to make money, they find things that weren't meant to be found, and it can actually help normal people. So I wanted to throw those things out there before I say what I'm going to say now. Okay. Which is that, and I've said this privately many times, and I might have even said this publicly, but people like Micah and my parents and stuff will say this. Many people's problems today in the world are not based on race, are not based on ethnicity, are not based on your religion or anything of that. It's class. Mm-hmm. And when people realize that you can band together at the bottom and have immense amounts of power, they will realize that the political partisan divide that says you're pro-life and you're pro-choice, or you believe in amnesty and you don't, like all that's, it's like, just remove all of that and think about your conditions right now. Mm-hmm. And what do you have in common? You're getting squeezed by the people at the top. And I just think that this was hopefully an eye-opening moment for people to realize that class is what's driving everything today, and that people need to band together in peace and in prosperity in order to better everyone else's situations, whether that's X, Y, or Z. And I don't want to get into any of that stuff because those are more political things. But I just wanted to say that, yeah, hedge funds can be good. They have a function. Short selling, it can be good. It has a function. But this was an example of peace. See, Chris, this is why the guys on CNBC and Fox Business and Bloomberg and everything, this is why they're scared. It's not because they're losing money. I don't think that that's actually what they're concerned about. That sucks for the dudes that are losing money. But these guys aren't all losing money. You know, what they're scared of is that everyone finally realized that the markets aren't as mystical as you might think they are, you know? Yeah. And that people figured out by banding together the short situation on GameStop before they did. And that's why they're mad. They're not mad because of the money being lost. They're mad because the mystification, the mist around the market is a little thinner today. Yeah. And that makes their jobs harder. And it makes people's ability to probe the market and make money for themselves. It makes it more possible. I think that's the major thing that sits at the center of it. So the markets have functions, and there are, I've been seeing a lot of things on the other side where it's like people don't know what they're talking about, right? I saw a lot of people getting upset because someone said, so-called quote unquote sophisticated investors. They use that quote, right? And people are like, what the fuck do you mean a sophisticated investor? That's a term, it means that you're an accredited investor that can deal in a deeper way with the market than you and I can't deal with the market. Totally. We're not allowed. It's not legal. Mm-hmm. We can't go buy like shit tons of commodities and futures and shit like that the way a sophisticated, in quotes, investor can. Right. So there is a place for that. And people shouldn't just lose their minds thinking that they understand all of the components of the market. No. Because there's so much to the market that's like, no one understands. That's always the joke with economy PhDs, like no one understands how the economy works. But I just wanted to say that I feel like it's class-based. I feel like hopefully this is a sign that maybe we can let down our guard in some other ways and band together arm in arm for the little man, which is almost all of us compared to them, right? But apart from that, the mist has fallen a little bit. And I'm really glad about that because people should be interacting with the market a little more. People should be understanding how it works. There is a smart way to invest. There is a smart way for little guys to get involved. And as people hive mind together, there are people that are paid millions of dollars at these hedge funds. We saw it even in Wolf of Wall Street and other movies, right? And The Big Short and stuff. These guys exist. They make lots of money because they understand the market. They're not dumb. I just feel like they realized that the playing, and this is what you guys were saying about Robinhood getting shut down and T&D and all of that for a little while. They just realized that like the ground is a little more level now. And now we're going to see something like this is never going to happen again because people are going to also keep their shorts private now. And, but apart from that, I'm just so glad that it opened people's eyes to something that I have a great passion for. I love finance. I think it's fun. I don't understand it at an intermediate level maybe or something. I'm not like an expert in any way.
Right.
But I am so glad that people are getting involved, realizing how it works now, realizing what shorting means, realizing how to buy a stock. What does buying a stock mean? When is the market open? What's the difference between the New York Stock Exchange and the Tokyo Stock Exchange? Why is this on, people have been joking around GameStop is getting so big it's going to be on like the S&P 500, So so I know I've been going on, I don't mean to go on and on, but I just wanted to say that I think a lot of different things can be true.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, Chris, I agree with you. I don't fucking feel bad for these vultures at all. I just don't know if I have all the information necessarily write all of the people underneath them, because these guys are not going to be caught holding the bag. No. You know that, and I know that. So who's going to be caught holding the bag? That's the question.
That's fair. But yeah, no, I think you're right. I'm glad that it's the whole class thing has been shined on a little bit more, and I think you tied a nice little bow on that.
Thank you. I mean, when you realize that a person that makes $10,000 a year, which is unacceptable, but $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a year has a lot more in common with a person even that makes $1 million a year.
Yeah.
Than the person with $1 million has with a billionaire.
Yeah.
And when everyone starts to realize that level of consciousness, what Marxism I call class consciousness, which is not what I'm suggesting, but it is something worth talking about. I do sound like a fucking Marxist, but that's not my intent.
That's just common. Like, I mean, $1 billion is it really is an inconceivable amount. Like, we think we understand it because we can write it out on like a piece of paper and it's like, oh, it's just another zero. But that is an inconceivable amount of money. That is like way more than like $1 million to like a couple, like 50,000 a year. You know what I mean? Like, that's like that's far, far, far closer. And, it's, I've been saying this for years, but it's like, you look on Wall Street and you look in like any kind of the upper brackets of economy and finance, and you're going to see minorities up there, you're going to see women up there, but you're never going to see a poor person with control over like how the laws are written, or like you're never going to see some dude on the street in like a trench coat that he's owned since the 60s eating $1 pizza out of a garbage can, and he's going to have like some mystical control over like the market and like how you live. It's like, it's literally all a bunch of suits, and I'm glad.
Yeah. And they watch out for each other more than, and their own status quo. Like, you can kind of get it in a way where it's like, wow, it must be really exciting to be that rich and to like chase money and more and more and more. But I don't know that, like, I want to have millions of dollars. I don't even know what I would do with like billions of dollars. It's like, it's like becoming president of the United States. Like, I don't even want that problem in my life. Just leave me alone.
Yeah, the thing for me is, it's like, I make a pretty good amount of money, especially for my age. And I'm like, I like, what am like, I don't feel like an intense desire to scrounge for more because I'm doing so well and I'm nowhere near like $1 million,
Sure.
So I don't know. I can't understand the especially like when you're in the billions. At that point, it's like, yeah, what are you even really trying to do? But, to each their own, and let consequences be consequences, and don't shut down stock exchange apps just because you're not having a good day.
Yeah, that's
actually like mega fucked, in my opinion.
Yeah, right? It's totally crooked. I'm really intrigued by, and this is where your limitations with, or your limitations with the market and understanding the market kind of, because it's the same with me, where it's like, I'm like, I don't know. I'm sure they have the right to do this somehow. I'm sure it's in some fucking weird Depression era legislation that they're like literally scrounging up right now. And they're like, listen, in this thing we signed in 1931, it says we can stop the, and do, and I'm like, I don't know, man. But it's about the philosophy behind it. Yeah. It's not even about the legality of it.
Yeah, something can be legal and also wrong,
Right. I agree.
So
keep everyone keep your eyes open. Treat your money with care and respect. I love going to casinos and gambling, and I have the same mantra. If you walk out of there with $0, it should be as if you never needed it at all.
Yeah,
right? Exactly. Treat the stock market the same way, and you'll have no worries. And that's and be patient. Otherwise, if you want to play, I love blue chip stocks. I love them.
I made money.
Like I'm totally fine with that. So,
and Colin, you mentioned more people learning and getting into stocks. I have to shout out our Discord. We have a channel called Stonks, where there's a nice little community. Nothing is actual legal advice, but there's a lot of people that are explaining things and letting people know about what apps and what's the rules and how things go. So if you're looking for a place to, talk with other like-minded fans of this podcast about stocks, check out the Last Stand Media Discord.
Oh, and by the way, before we move on, this is the best thing without a doubt that Reddit has ever done. I think this is
this is big internet energy. This is not even Reddit, but just this is big internet energy. I think for sure. This
is historical. Without a doubt.
Yeah, I agree.
Be in text.
Yeah, there's gonna be legislation to deal with this, and there's gonna be Senate and House hearings over this, and the Robin Hood guys are gonna be torn before Congress, and it's gonna be And meanwhile, my favorite thing was two things. People, especially early on, I don't think anyone's saying this anymore. Number one being people chiming in on Twitter being like, well, they just hired Reggie, Fils-Aimé and all that. I'm like, no one gives a fuck that they hired Reggie. You think that's why the stock. And then number two, and I know they got some guys from Chewy, which is a great company that they're now on the board and stuff like that. But that has nothing to do with it. And then the second one was just, kind of people not really paying attention to the news around them and then asking people to explain it to them.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And I'm like, you're on the great Alexandria Library repository of information. It's called the internet. And in the time you wrote that tweet, you could have said, what is a short sale? And read Investopedia like everyone else. All right. For God's sake. So get a grip.
Yeah.
And, hey, again, congratulations to those of you out there that made a coin. Proud of you. All right. Now let's talk about actual video games. And again, we'll get on back into that Sacred Symbols Plus next week.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure there's going to be much more to talk about by the time we record that.
Sure, certainly.
Very exciting.
We might be out of date even just now, when you're listening.
Yeah. Oh, no, definitely. Yeah. We're recording this on the 28th.
Yeah.
So
things are happening.
At night. Indeed. Number 2. Sony and Housemarque have opted to delay the upcoming PlayStation 5 exclusive third-person roguelike shooter Returnal, but only for a short time. Originally slated for launch on March 19th, publisher Sony has revealed that the game will now come out on April 30th. In a tweet from the official PlayStation account, it's noted that, quote, SIE and Housemarque have made the decision to move the release date in order to give the team extra time to continue to polish the game to the level of quality players expect from Housemarque, end quote. Returnal, which will be only the second actual PlayStation 5 exclusive launch by Sony, is the first foray from Housemarque into the AAA space, and they're typically known for their very high-quality twin-stick arcade shooters, such as 2007's Super Stardust HD, 2010's Dead Nation, and 2013's Resogun, all PlayStation exclusives. This sucks, although I understand, it's not that big of a deal, it's 5 weeks. I thought it was more interesting that they didn't announce it on the PlayStation blog, which reminded me a lot of Iron Man VR, when they just announced the release date of it on Twitter. I'm like, oh, not good. Is there anyone have anything to say about this? I don't know. I'll just throw it out to the floor, I guess, here.
I'm concerned about this game. I'm mainly concerned, honestly, that I don't know if I think they need to come out with more than just that recent combat trailer and say, hey, this is why this game is worth $70. Because I just don't know if they've justified that yet, especially because maybe this is just in my head, but there's a thing about roguelike games where I'm like, okay, procedurally generated content. Obviously, there's a ton of work that goes into figuring out how to make a game do that. But when I hear a $70 price tag on a game like that, I get a weird feeling.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's going to be bad necessarily because of that. I just get a weird feeling.
I know what you mean. It's like the value of how much design is being actually implemented in the whenever I buy when I buy Hitman 3, I know that every single level in there has been finely crafted and finely honed to be a really good place to play through. Whereas like in procedurally generated games, it feels a little bit more like a lot of the bulk of the work goes into making similar rooms feel different, and not so much making similar rooms feel, honed and well crafted and well designed. Like even in the even in the procedurally generated games that I like, games like Dead Cells, like I wouldn't argue that anything about those stages are particularly well designed. It's fun to go through them, but there's nothing in any given stage that makes me think, oh, whoa, cool. It's usually just the gameplay that carries it. And maybe this is a situation with Returnal 2 where the gameplay does a lot of the heavy lifting, and in which case that would be, that'd be fine. But I know exactly what you're talking about, where it almost feels like there's less work, even if that's not the case.
Right. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Housemarque. I still play Resogun probably once a month. So I want this game to be amazing. I want this game to be a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
But I just don't have that feeling about it right now.
It does seem too expensive. I mean, I said that from the outset. I just don't understand why you'd even make it. I mean, I understand why you'd make it $70, but it just seems like an attractive $49.99 kind of, or even $39.99 game. But maybe we're underestimating what it is, and that's to your point. We don't really know. I mean, we don't really know what it is. But I agree with you. Roguelike is usually actually a turnoff to me, with rare exception. And Housemarque is what's attractive to me with this. But it's interesting they said, the level of quality players expect from Housemarque. So I'm sure COVID's not making anything any easier for them, but this is a true PS5 exclusive. This is not even a PC game. So we will be playing it on, let's see, April 30th. Far away. Number 3, a shortage of hardware essential to the construction of PlayStation 5 means that console shortages may persist throughout 2021, though hopefully not beyond. Word comes by way of website Tom's Hardware, which reported on AMD's recent fiscal reports. AMD, or Advanced Micro Devices, is a world famous and renowned semiconductor company, and its microprocessors and other chipsets are in many of the devices you use every day. However, even as their business operates at a brisk profit, it's unable to meet demand with microprocessor production, with Sony's custom-made AMD CPUs and AMD GPUs a lower production priority than other high-end microprocessors. The website reads in part that AMD's CEO Lisa Su noted that, quote, the shortages primarily impact gaming and the low end of the PC market, and overall demand has exceeded its planning, ellipsis. Su suspects to see tightness throughout the first half of 2021 until added production capacity comes online. That means we could see a limited supply of AMD's PC and console chips until the middle of the year, end quote. With inherent latency between the production of components, shipping those components, receiving them, then manufacturing a complete device, and getting it into consumers' hands, it's safe to assume PlayStation 5 will again be one of Christmas's, and this time 2021's, hottest and rarest electronics, though hopefully not to the extent we saw in 2020. So this is not a problem for the three of us on the show. We all have our PS5s, but this is bad news for those that are looking for a PS5 still because of the latent manufacturing delay, right? They started making PS5s last summer. So I'm nervous about this. It just reinforces this feeling, Dustin, that I don't feel like they should have even launched the PS5 until February or March, just to let these things sit in a warehouse and then have some to sell. It must be so annoying to them because they cannot meet demand. There can't be anything more annoying for a company than just having the inability to meet this really pent up demand,
Right. And the thing that is important to remember about AMD is that they are seeing a huge surge as a company overall. They've sat second place to Intel in the PC space for years. And it wasn't until kind of these newer Ryzen line that they've really kind of taken the top spot for not just gamers, but all PCs for the most part. So to see them, they're king right now in the PC space. They provide chips to Microsoft and Sony, and I'm sure there are a million other places as well. Like I remember their stock, speaking of stocks again, their stocks went up a lot because Google and Twitter signed on to use their chips for their like back-end processing cloud stuff. So they have their hands all over the place. So I can understand if like, hey, they're making so many chips that maybe, supply constraints, it at least makes sense. So
yeah, they're competing, like you said, with their rival for similar, although separate, custom chipsets for their respective consoles. And like they say here, you know, their priority or just the higher. What they're basically saying is this all costs us the same to make. We're just gonna focus on the things that make us more money, which of course makes a lot of sense. Chris, when do you? I know we talked about this recently, but do you still feel like your PS5 prediction holds? I think you were kind of optimistic that people would be able to more readily find them soon.
No. I think maybe did I say that? I feel like
I thought so, but maybe not. I mean, I don't know. Tell me what your position is.
Because like I've thought maybe like the best chance that you could possibly get like optimistically was like August or like September, which is still like something that I'm like, I don't know. I really, that's like really hopeful, you know? I don't think it's going to be a good year for this.
Yeah, it just sucks because I feel like it's also just going to kind of feed this, you know, maybe increasingly reasonable narrative that PS5 has no games or few games, but now people are going to be like, well, there's literally no way we can even play them. I think at some point you're going to find that demand is just, I feel like demand is going to dissipate because people are going to move on, you know? And I feel like this unsatiated demand benefits Xbox, which is certain. We don't have sales numbers yet, but there's no way Xbox is selling better than PS5. So they're more common, and I feel like people are just going to migrate over. I think this is a problem for Sony. I always wonder what the contracts look like on these things, like how many chips were promised, or like there's like a probably very sophisticated and very intense way that they figure out who's going to make what. And but it probably sucks. Like, or do they have to pay more? Or they bid more? Or they try to like, you know, call in favors and twist arms. It's sure.
I'm sure it's a combination of all that.
Probably.
Yeah.
So keep an eye out. I think scalper prices are coming down. I don't want people to go out and buy scalper units, but if that's your last resort, at least, I don't think they're going for quite what they were.
I could
actually, Micah showed me on QVC, they were selling PS5s, but they were selling them for $1,300, and you had to buy, it came with Madden, a controller dock, and like some sort of like extra controller, and that was literally it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was like, you were literally better off going and buying a scalped one than even buying it from QVC. But this is preying on, you know, grandma, you know. So.
Yeah.
All right. This usually would have been much bigger news on a normal week, but we're like an hour and a half into the show and we haven't even talked about this yet. Number 4, Sony has revealed February's lineup of free PlayStation Plus games, and many players seem quite pleased. First, what we already knew was coming: Destruction All-Stars, the upcoming multiplayer-centric vehicular combat game completely exclusive to PlayStation 5 that was initially aiming for PS5's launch. Destruction All-Stars is made by Lucid Games, a studio best known for smaller games and port work, and will launch on February 1st. This is a Sony-published second-party game. Destruction All-Stars will be free for PS Plus subscribers until April 5th, so you have some time out there to get it. Rounding out the lineup are Control for both PS4 and PS5, as well as PS4's Concrete Genie. Control is Remedy Entertainment's 2019 third-person action shooter, and this version is the Ultimate Edition, which comes with both of the game's DLC expansions. Concrete Genie, on the other hand, is also a 2019 game, this time a third-person action-adventure title from Sony's seldom-discussed internal studio Pixel Opus, which previously released PS3s, PS4s, and Vitas Entwined in 2014. As always, PS Plus subscribers should scurry to PlayStation Network to secure these games at some point in February, even if you don't intend on playing them now or ever, as there's literally no reason for you not to do so. All right, so there are a few things here that we would need to get into, so let's take them one at a time. Wet Willie wrote into us and said, "Hey, Recluse Colin and suddenly frequent uploader Chris. Destruction All-Stars gameplay video has been released, and I have to say it looks pretty fun. Does this PS Plus offering give you any of the same indications of feelings that Rocket League gave? Rocket League, of course, is a meteoric success, an early PS4 success, although not second party, third party. PlayStation Plus did a lot to bolster that game when it launched as well. I personally don't get similar vibes to this. I still don't know why this isn't a Twisted Metal game. I have no idea why it's a new game. I don't really understand this one. And I kind of feel like they knew that Returnal was going to get delayed too, because they did say a while ago, this was supposed to be, by the way, a full price game at one point, people might remember. And they were like, they were charging $70 for this too. Remember this? And then they were like, oh, we can't. They probably got literally 5 pre-orders. And then they were like, we can't even sell it at all. So they put it on PS Plus. So I'm not trying to hate on it, but I don't get Rocket League vibes from it at all. have you guys seen it? Did you watch? I should note there was a state of play kind of quietly put out for this game.
All about it?
Yeah.
When?
I think like 2 days. I think it was actually concurrent with the PlayStation Plus posting, but I can look. But I don't know. I just don't care about this game. I know it's not for me, so
yeah. I find it hard to be all that interested in it. I mean, if it's a free PlayStation Plus game, then yeah, I guess I'll check it out because I'm gonna need something to play on this machine that I infiltrated another building to get.
That's true. You did.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it could have like some kind of effect of being like, hey, because there's not many like PS5 exclusive multiplayer offerings right now, if any. So like, yeah, I could see it getting bolstered by that, and maybe potentially having some kind of niche, like some moderate success because of that. But I don't know. It doesn't speak to me at all. I haven't even been remotely curious about it for ages. Like I thought about like when you just said that, they had a whole state of play about it. I thought about Googling it just to see what that was, and I immediately lost all the desire that I had to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I scrubbed through it a little bit. It's Destruction All-Stars. It's a third-person vehicular combat game where you can get in and out of your cars and shit. And I don't know. Are you interested in this at all, Dustin?
I'm watching the gameplay now. I meant to earlier, and I mean, Chris has said this before, but the blatant Fortnite visual style of it is so off-putting.
Yeah, it's brutal.
It's not even that it's bad. It's just I'm tired of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's brutal. I mean, it's a brutal thing to be subjected to over and over again.
It's oversaturated as hell, definitely. Like, there's no like I like games that have really nice or just like distinct art styles. Like I actually kind of forgot to mention this because I only I started playing it again, but I didn't play it enough to really put it in the games that we were playing. But like I've been jumping back into the Pathless, which is like a game that doesn't look. That game doesn't look realistic, and it doesn't, it looks cartoony, but it also doesn't look like Fortnite. It looks gorgeous. It's a really like stunningly like beautiful game. And you can have games that like aren't realistic, that don't just completely ape what Fortnite does. And that was one of the things that did originally put me off of this thing, where it's just like, oh my God, it's another one of these. Like there's more than just one art style for this kind of thing. And it kind of reminds me of like the 2007, 2008, when like we were being bombarded with like gritty, like gray, like everything was like realistic and dark, Yeah,
like Fracture.
Yeah, like Fracture. Beloved IP.
Our beloved Fracture. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I like color, but this is obnoxious.
Not Fortnite color.
Yeah.
Remember when we went out to eat that day and we were talking about Fortnite, and then we randomly got behind this mom and kid on the street. We were literally talking about Fortnite and how much we hated it a minute ago and how we can't escape it. And then we got behind this like mom and the kid started talking about Fortnite. It was like, you couldn't have written it any better. I was like, this is incredible.
That was an amazing moment. That was early on too.
Yeah, it was. So, I don't know. I did look at the state of play just to see, it came out yesterday. So PlayStation has a ton of subscribers. It has fewer than 500,000 views. I don't know how to read that, but it is a pretty overwhelming 30-1 or so positive to dislike ratio, or like to dislike ratio on there. And everyone hates everything. So maybe people are excited about it. And I think that the idea, Chris, of this desperation for a PlayStation 5 game is maybe going to drive people to it in a unique way. But we'll find out when Destruction All-Stars comes out February 1st.
Yeah, I don't even think it looks bad, really. It's just sort of, it just doesn't really do anything for me.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't look bad. It's just, I don't know. Yeah, it is like Fortnite, like the explosions and the fireworks. It's like, oh, geez, man. I don't even know that much about Fortnite, and I know that that's all just ripped straight out of it.
Yeah.
All right. The second thing I wanted to get into with this is from Billy Deadman. He wrote in and said, "Hey, Last Stand dudes, is 2021 going to be the best year for PS Plus? 2 back-to-back months of bangers suggested could be." Now, I do want to say, when I first saw this lineup, I wasn't that blown away by it. And I was actually pretty surprised about how positive people were being about it, because I thought last month's was way better. And I think that a lot of people didn't agree with that at all. Like, I thought Maneater and Greedfall, it's like pretty nice little combo of games there. And that, so I guess it's all a matter of taste, but Dustin, are you feeling good about this month's offering?
Yeah, I think the fact that they're giving away 2 PlayStation 5 games, first of all, is awesome. And I think it sits in a nice spot with Control, where I'm guessing there's a lot of people that bought it and played it on PS4 and had either a bad experience with the, maybe they suffered through it with the frame rate and stuff like that. But maybe they're interested in playing it again, and especially playing the DLC is, I think, a big aspect of the draw of that. And also with Concrete Genie, I think that's a lot of game that people are like, that looks interesting, but not enough for me to buy it. And so they'll gladly, I mean, that's the case I'm in, where it's a game that I was just like, not sure if I want to, put down, what was it, $40 for that?
Yeah, I think it was 40 or 30 or 40. But I think I accidentally bought it for $40 because I got the special edition, but I think it might have been 30.
Oh, right. Yeah. So,
I mean, even Sony wasn't all that keen on putting money down for it either, because when they did like a blowout news announcement for it, they also launched details about the PS5 on the same.
Yeah, it was very weird.
Yeah. So I think it's a great month, and I think that obviously this stuff is planned out way in advance, but I think it's great that for Sony, that PS Plus is looking great right now in comparison to Xbox Live Gold, who the games on that are free with gold every month are embarrassing compared to lineups like this. Obviously, that's all covered on Defining Duke, so we don't need to get into it too heavy, but it definitely is a good look in comparison right now.
Yeah, it's I guess I didn't like Concrete Genie very much. It's fine. But the Control stuff is interesting. A lot of people wrote in about Control. A lot of people are upset about this. Actually, for a few different reasons. Ben Williams wrote in and said, "Hello, sexy boys. While many people are celebrating Control Ultimate Edition being a new PS Plus game in February, I'm pissed. I purchased Control half off during a PS Store sale that ended exactly 15 days prior to Sony announcing it as a free game. Even though I never downloaded the game as I was waiting for the PS5 version, I have been denied a refund because the purchase was more than 14 days ago. I'm sure I'm not the only one in this situation. Do you agree it's pretty shitty for Sony to time the announcement like this?" So I kind of just blew this off when I first started seeing this, but a lot of people wrote in about this. For some reason, a lot of people feel really burned about this specific thing. And I don't know that that's really fair, just because Sony is typically pretty good about letting people know. In fact, they're letting you know now, for instance, right, that you shouldn't buy Concrete Genie if you're going to buy it or whatever. Like, you shouldn't, buy Control now. And it does kind of suck, but I don't know. What should be how much grace period should you be given, right? Before a game is, do I think that they intentionally did it like this? Yeah, I'm sure they probably did, but I don't know. I'm not that upset about it, but I am surprised by a lot of other people's consternation about this. Dustin, have you been seeing that?
I haven't, though. I did think about it in the fact that there was all that controversy around the PS5 upgrade of Control costing money and the whole Ultimate Edition fiasco. It is a little bit fishy in the fact that the way they timed out that sale and this announcement, my guess is that it wasn't intentional. It was just poor planning. I don't know. Sometimes you get burned in sales like this. It sucks, but I've been there where I've bought something on sale and then like 3 days later it's either, or you buy something and then it goes on sale. It can go that way as well. So this is just what happens. It's unfortunate, but I don't really know what else to really say about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's your choice ultimately, and it's your money. And like, I've done the same thing where I bought a game and like 2 days later it just, it was free on like Xbox Live Gold or whatever the hell, or like PS Plus, or it's like, well, what are you going to do? Like, I spent the money. Presumably that money that I spent was, I guess, to just have it sooner, and I just made a dumb call there. Or not even like a dumb call, just like a call that, was just uninformed or whatever the hell. And it's whatever. This kind of stuff happens. I buy games at full price usually. Like, I don't usually wait for sales, because I know this feeling of just like, because usually when something's on whenever something's on sale to a degree that I find really enticing, it usually means it's gonna be free somewhere on some humble bundle or like some, you know, some subscriber special thing. There are games that I bought that ended up on Game Pass, you know,
Right, sure.
A couple days later, and it's like, that sucks. But at least I'll own it when it's off Game Pass, and at least like at least I'll own Control. If I choose to stop paying for PS Plus at any point, you know, that's kind of what you're paying for at that point.
I feel like this all comes out in the wash. Like,
yeah,
it's what we were saying earlier, right? Like where like every once in a while you're that guy. I think every once in a while you just eat shit.
Yeah,
on these things. It's just the way it goes. By the way, the PlayStation Plus lineup is exactly the same in Japan, but they also get Bloodstained: Ritual of the Night, which makes that lineup bonkers good if you think it's good already. You know.
Yeah.
All right. Number 5, Danish studio IO Interactive, which just released the year's first big game in Hitman 3, is already talking about its next project. Its still mysterious upcoming 007 game. And a conversation with the Danish Broadcasting Corporation is relayed by website IGN. The studio's director, Hakan Abrak, noted that the team will get to make its own James Bond, untethered from any particular actor known to play the role, most recently Daniel Craig. And the story is new too, something the studio hopes to potentially explore in a sequel similar to its newest Hitman games that began in 2016. They think it may even go to a trilogy. As such, they're scaling up. IO Interactive has a 200-person headcount that's expected to double as development truly gets underway following Hitman 3, and the Broccoli family, which owns the rights to James Bond, of course, Barbara Broccoli. I love that name. It's the best. So I love when she trends every once in a while. Are fully on board for a project that are fully on board for a project that IO apparently prepared to pitch for a couple of years. 007, based on Ian Fleming's novel series from the 50s and 60s, is far better known in the decades since for its movies. And a 007 game, GoldenEye, was one of N64's most acclaimed games in the 90s. It's been largely downhill for the games ever since, however, even as the movies continue to succeed commercially and critically. The last Bond game was Eurocom's FPS Legends, which came to PlayStation 3 in 2012. I totally forgot about that game until I researched. As for IO Interactive, they're doing great in their independent post-Square Enix life. According to website GamesIndustry.biz, Hitman 3 made its entire cost of development back in the first week on the market. So congratulations to them.
Love it.
Very good well shit. Done. Yeah. Denmark's biggest studio by far. Playdead's Danish too, I think. So those are like the two biggest studios over there.
It's good.
All right. So
quality.
I'm sorry.
I'm saying that's good representation for the country quality wise.
Oh, definitely. Small country. My best friend Ramon went there for like a week, and he has like really funny stories. He got like super stoned in some park and had some weird experience there. I'll let him tell it sometime. Duncan Leishman wrote in and said, "Hey chaps, this is probably more for Chris, but would be good to get both of your opinions. Like Chris, I am loving the new Hitman, even though I haven't beaten it yet, as I keep replaying Death in the Family. Given the fact that IO Interactive plans on doubling the size of their dev team and will no doubt have a much larger budget for the James Bond game, what would you like to see from it? Personally, I would like them to keep the sandbox levels for the most part, but have more focus on narrative, animation work, and a more varied voice cast. Also, as licensed games seem to be a big thing now, are there any licensed properties you would wish to see in video games, and which developers would you assign to said projects?" We can talk about that if you'd like, but I'd really like to hear, Chris, you're a big IO fan and a Hitman guy, and we'll get Dustin's take on this too, but do you have any desire? I mean, are you a Bond person?
That's kind of the thing with me. It's like, I don't really give a shit about James Bond at all. Like, I didn't even really care for GoldenEye. Because by the time I had played GoldenEye, I had a PS2 and an Xbox. So I'd played Halo and Time Splitters, and in comparison,
it's hard to go back.
GoldenEye just didn't age as well. I'll put it that way.
No, it certainly didn't. It certainly didn't. It was great at the time, but it didn't age well.
Yeah, at least on the N64. Like, I think if you played that game on PC, it probably still would have been fun. But that N64 controller was just a mess. And but so yeah, Bond I don't care for, but I love IO. And if they're going to approach James Bond in even a vaguely similar way that they approached Hitman with, then I'm excited regardless. I do think really the only thing that needs to change is like maybe just like some work on animation, because like, the cutscene animations are fine, but they're nothing like nothing like amazing. Like there's no like, it's not Last of Us Part 2, So maybe just like an up to that, maybe like a bigger focus on narrative. But outside of that, honestly, I'm fine if these are just new Hitman games with like a James Bond skin. I don't care. Like as long as they focus really really heavily on the sandbox elements that have made Hitman 3 and its predecessors successful and really, really great games. I think that they can make something cool here, because I do think that again, they're just like the only people on the market doing this kind of thing, and they're doing it really, really well. And I think as cool as this kind of collaboration between IO and the Bond family would be, I think it would be a net loss to lose that in exchange for just a generic third-person James Bond romp.
Are you a Bond guy, Dustin?
So I've seen some James Bond. Like I've seen, I think, Goldfinger, and then like 90s with The
Pierce
World
Brosnan.
Is Not Enough is one I've seen. I've seen one of the Daniel Craig ones. So I've seen like not anything consistent where like a bunch in a row. But I've always had a passive interest, and this is like kicking it into gear that I'm like, it's time to like really dive in to James Bond, especially just because of this. And so my hope is that they draw more inspiration from older James Bond than newer James Bond, which, again, I've only seen, I think the only one of the Daniel Craig I've seen is Skyfall. But to my understanding, it's like James Bond is like kind of an action comedy in a way, in that like he's the type of guy that will like jump out of an explosion and then like, tighten up his tie. And Hitman games are already like half comedy games, sometimes intentionally, even, in that like, you can blow up a rubber ducky and kill your target or whatever. So I feel like that spirit is there for them to make this very traditional James Bond, but I also want them to just go crazy with it. I already saw people that were like, it better not be a woman James Bond, blah blah blah, and I'm like, fuck off, let them do whatever. Like, this is a totally unique experience where you can do whatever you want with James Bond. And so I feel like, especially with the the family, Mrs. Broccoli involved, that it can be true to what James Bond is while being fresh and new.
Yeah. I feel like this is just a kind of coherent step for them to take, right? It's like, okay, I understand this logical step from Hitman to Bond. I think you're right. I mean, what I was thinking about it, I'm like, this is gonna be a black James Bond, and that's
cool.
totally fine. I don't give a shit. I mean, that wasn't the first time. I think what's that guy? Idris Elba.
Idris Elba, yeah.
He was rumored to be Bond, I think, for a while, which would have been fine too. But I got that feeling when they made it clear in their interview with the Danish broadcasting company where they're making their own Bond. I feel like, yeah, like a black Bond or a woman Bond or something. I don't know that I'm really down with a woman Bond. I feel like, I don't know, it's like a different character, right? But
right.
Like, who cares what skin color he is or whatever? That is because he's supposed to be like a debonair ladies man and all of that. I want that still to be part of the character. I think maybe it's a little sexist these days.
A ladies woman.
Oh yeah, sure. Everyone's gonna love that.
Yeah,
right.
Trio Interactive is gonna be really amped.
Market.
Yeah, it's one
Everyone
of those.
loves the lesbian market.
Yeah,
who doesn't?
It's one of those situations where I trust. Though, I mean, I guess IO's storytelling is. I have no fucking clue what's going on in the Hitman story at all.
Oh yeah, no.
So, and I don't know if anyone does, frankly. I mean, you can write in and let me know, but I don't know if anyone has any clue what's going on. So maybe this, could be concerning. But either way, I'm always just like, I don't know, let them do their thing and see what comes out. I just am always excited about, like, we've gotten the same type of James Bond for literally decades. And so, fuck it, let's try new things. It's a video game. Like,
yeah,
move on. If you don't like it, so what?
It's funny though, because like when this news broke, I was constantly kind of assessing like, oh, because I've thought of James Bond as like a secret agent for a really long time, and now it's like, oh, the guys who are making Hitman are making a James Bond game. It's like a match made in heaven, and I'm like, is James Bond a hitman? I guess he is.
Kind of.
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, he's a spy, right? So I mean, yeah, he's
yeah. I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought about it in that context, because like a hitman is so inherently kind of like villainous, even if he's like the the good guy in like a story. It's like dude kills people for money. But like a secret agent is a lot more like playful. It's like, I got this cool little spy device. I'm gonna listen through a wall on a stethoscope and then shoot this person who has a wife and kids, but it's fine because I use the stethoscope to look.
Yeah, because you use the stethoscope. That's cool.
Yeah, I don't know. This is gonna be. I just hope that they, stay in line with. They could go as crazy as they want with it, but I want that sandbox gameplay because that's so dead right now.
Yeah, we'll see. It's gonna be a little while. They're scaling up, but it seems like Hitman's deceased for now, or dormant, let's say, after this, which is good. It's time.
Give him a nap.
Go away a little while now.
They went out on a high note, in my opinion.
Yeah, and they can revive. I'm sure they'll bring it back.
Oh yeah.
Number 6. Last June, publisher Electronic Arts had an exciting announcement, one that fans had been asking for years. A new skate game would be coming down the pipe at a far out time in the future. Yes, the 2 double entendres there. Coming down the pipe at a far out time in the future. No?
I
tried.
It's okay.
Yeah. At the time, it was clear the team was still being built and that the plan wasn't firm, but now it is, and EA is so committed to the project that it's created a new, fully owned team to make it. The studio will work out of Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada, and it'll be called Full Circle. The team will be tasked with following up Skate 3, which was launched on PS3 way back in 2010, following the original Skate's release in 2007, and Skate 2's in 2009, both also on PS3. Not much more to say here, but EA is, this news kind of fell under the radar. EA created a new team, and EA closes a lot of teams down. So they don't actually have that many teams anymore. They have fewer than 10 now. So I thought this was welcome news. Yeah. Although I'm a little surprised about how half-baked the Skate announcement was at E3. This is like a trend for them now. Yeah,
it's a little weird because hearing this news, I was like, you're just starting. Is that what that means?
Yeah, basically. I would assume that game's not coming until 2023, fall 2023, maybe something like that.
The earliest. Weird. That's so weird because how long ago was it that they announced this?
June 2020. Yeah.
It's so weird. Don't do that. Stop doing that. If you're like an industry person, don't be like, hey, we're working on this thing, but really it's just like you talked about it. That's a job for YouTubers to do. YouTubers do.
Right.
You're developers, don't.
Yeah,
don't have that.
We actually need you to make the games.
Yeah.
It is a little. Are you a skate guy, Dustin? Yeah, I know you skate in real life, but were you a skate fan?
I've never played it outside of an Xbox 360 demo, so I'm interested. I'm excited to check it out when it eventually comes out. Maybe I should check out one on backwards compatibility on Xbox or something. But
yeah, it was a new kind of game. I remember it was all on the stick, so it was it felt very different than the skate games that were not the proper skate games, but Tony Hawk games that were all on the face buttons and
you like it when it's all on the stick.
I know. Yeah.
I couldn't get used to it. I tried it for approximately 15 seconds, the skate games, and I was like, oh, so you do tricks with the sticks? Okay. And then I went to bed. And then I never played it again.
And then you never got up again.
I can't grasp it. I was like, how does the camera work then? Nah, I'll see you later. I can't. But
I actually had a similar thing with it. I couldn't play it either. I couldn't get behind it. I remember it was a game where you either got it or you didn't.
Yeah.
And I definitely didn't get it.
Same.
But number 7, I definitely don't get this one. For some strange reason, Activision has taken its studio Vicarious Visions and folded it into Blizzard, which it also owns. In a vague statement given to website gamesindustry.biz, Activision said in part, quote, after collaborating with Vicarious Visions for some time and developing a great relationship, Blizzard realized there was an opportunity for them to provide long-term support, end quote. This move comes along with some shuffling in studio leadership as well. The move is confusing primarily because Vicarious Visions is actually responsible for 2 of the publisher's most surprising hits recently. 2017's Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy and 2020's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 Remake, which were both ground-up remakes. Before that, the studio was heavily involved with the Skylanders and Guitar Hero franchises. Vicarious Visions is a more than 30-year-old studio, located in Albany, New York, by the way, and has been with Activision for roughly half of that time. They are now fully under the Blizzard umbrella, however, as they technically existed as a separate entity under Activision. Sumo Joe 118 wrote in and said, hello, boys. What do you think is the status of Tony Hawk moving forward since Vicarious Visions is now working on a Blizzard project? I was really hoping for a Pro Skater 3 remake as it's one of my favorite Tony Hawk games, but now I'm skeptical if it will happen or if it will be as good under a different developer. This was shocking. This week was so full of news, but the Vicarious Visions stuff was weird because I was like, why?
Yeah,
you know,
this is infuriating to me. Like, this is such a wild. This is such an egregious waste of talent. Like, this is a studio that's been around for a while. Like, their first game was like, what was it? Ultimate Alliance 2, I'm pretty sure. And like,
for Activision, they've been around since 1990.
Yeah, no, I remember the games from like before then. But like, that's what I'm saying. It's like this is like a storied team, and I feel like sincerely, like, since, you know, like this generation, they've gotten so good. You know, they nailed the Crash Bandicoot remake. They nailed Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. You know, they worked support on Destiny when that was going on, and that was a pretty good partnership. It's just like, what, you have this team that is showing a lot of promise, like almost like maybe not Blue Point tier promise, but like honestly kind of close. Like the Crash Bandicoot trilogy single-handedly relaunched that character into the mainstream. And Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 is like it won so many awards, and like, it's reviewing so well, despite it looking like at face value this like almost identical to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5, which was terrible. Clearly, that should show you that they understand like the finer details of what makes these things work, and the fact that they would just like take them and just like shove them into like a support role for Blizzard is just so. That's so sad. Like it's just disappointing.
It's especially disappointing just because I don't want to insult Beanox or High Moon or anything like that, but like there are other support teams that don't really have the same level of respect that if Blizzard needed someone, they could have went to. I know that they seem to work together, but I thought the wording was interesting in what they were saying too, where they were like, Blizzard realized there was an opportunity. And it's like, well, why is Blizzard wagging the dog? I don't understand. I feel maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe it won't matter, but I agree with what Sumo Joe's saying, because I had assumed Vicarious Visions was going to become Activision's like internal remake studio of some sort, or at least be doing stuff like that, because they have so many great games that they can from the past that they can do something with. So I don't know. Dustin, how are you feeling about Vicarious Visions leaving the fold here?
Well, I feel like Tony Hawk will, at least if they do Pro Skater 3 and 4, I think those will be all right, because I'm guessing that whatever team that comes in is just going to work off of the base that they already created with 1 and 2 and just make the new level assets and stuff like that. But I think what's interesting about this whole story that I don't know if you saw this, Colin, but Jason Schreier, our friend Jason, was tweeting out about how they're specifically...
He blocked me on Twitter, so I can't see him.
Oh, yeah, that's probably
so why I missed it.
That's why. I somehow have bypassed that, so I don't know. I've never interacted with him. That's probably why.
I don't think I don't think I said anything mean to him. I know him in person. I would never say anything mean to him online. Whatever, it doesn't matter.
Anyway, he put out saying that Vicarious Visions is working on a Diablo 2 remake because Blizzard, their internal remake, their classic team, which is apparently called Team 1, has been dismantled after Warcraft 3 Reforged ended up being such a shit show. And so now Vicarious Visions is working in tandem with the team working on Diablo 4 on this Diablo 2 remake.
So that's interesting. That's interesting because so that's their space remake.
Right. Yeah. And I'm wondering, I mean, I guess Activision saw more value in making sure a Diablo 2 remake was, top tier. I think the strategy is a bit odd that they're working on Diablo 4 and a remake of 2 at the same time. I kind of feel like it's a little, not too late for the Diablo 2 remake, but that would have been a nice thing to put out in between Diablo 3 and 4, not, at this around the same time, even if it's 1 year and then the other. It just seems a little odd, but I don't know, maybe their timing is off because of the dismantlement of Team 1 and all the shit that went down with that. So overall, just a very interesting situation. And I think most of all, what's interesting is that over the years, what a lot of people have feared about Blizzard combining with Activision has come true, is that they're just slowly let's see if I can say this right, Activision-ication of Blizzard.
Activision-ication.
That's it. Yeah.
This is another one of those words we were talking about last week, Chris, where you can't find the right place.
That's it. Yeah.
To segue off the syllables.
But this is just another example of that. We see this over and over. So
Yeah. Activisionication.
Just disappointing. It's just disappointing. I love Vicarious Visions. They made some of my favorite games. Like even back when I was a kid. Like they made Spider-Man 2, which is like the game that is like still the game that everybody compares Spider-Man video games to. You know? And even just before then, like with the it's so sad.
Yeah, I guess the Diablo stuff makes it a little better because that is an important franchise. It is weird though, because I was just giving credit to Activision last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago, where I was like, they kind of seem like they're turning a corner. It's not that they're ever going to make they're never going to have like the EA, Yarny game and shit. They're never going to do shit like that.
No.
But like, it seemed like they were going to start mining the past a little bit. Activision holds a lot of stuff. They don't hold a lot of like modern stuff, but they hold a lot of old things. And I just thought maybe I was going to be able to pump a little bit of goodwill into them, but
you know what's wild? I feel like EA is honestly doing the best right now.
Well, especially because they're going to be unencumbered from Star Wars, so now they can maybe not worry about that anymore. You know, yeah, I agree with you. All right, this one's for you boys. Number 8. It appears Ghost of Tsushima is getting a native PlayStation 5 release, at least if the resume of Dave Malloy, developer Sucker Punch's Cinematics creative director, is to be believed, and it most certainly is. News comes by way of website Push Square, which republished a screen grab of Malloy's since-edited resume, which notes that he's, quote, presently working on the Ghost of Tsushima game for Sony's PS5, end quote, which is something that he wouldn't have made an error about, I don't think. Malloy since edited it to read just Sony PlayStation, which makes no sense if it didn't mean PS5, since Ghost of Tsushima launched on PS4 mid-last year. It could likewise mean that he's working on the sequel, which Sucker Punch is openly hiring for. It could be a typo or a mistake. It could also mean he's working on Legends, although he is the cinematic director. I don't think he'd be working on that. Dave Malloy is a longtime employee of Sucker Punch with credits going back to the original Infamous, which came to PlayStation 3 in 2009. He worked on video and motion graphics for all of the Infamous games through 2014, leading into Ghost of Tsushima. This doesn't seem like a mistake someone like him would make, although it doesn't seem like a mistake someone like him would make. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In other words, it doesn't seem like he would accidentally write that. But why would someone like that just accidentally write that? You know, like, I don't understand. So it's weird. I don't know. What do you think?
It's weird. I think this means a sequel, though. Like, I don't think this means a native PS5 release of Ghost of Tsushima, because quite honestly, I don't see a reason for a native PS5 release of Ghost of Tsushima, because the PS4 version of Ghost of Tsushima runs at 60 frames per second. It looks gorgeous still. I don't know what would be the selling point of selling it for PS5. Maybe it has a slightly higher native resolution, but even I can't even. I think this means he's working on a sequel. I think that's what that means. I just don't see a reason to buy.
Yeah, I think that's a compelling argument. I think you're probably right. What do you think, Dustin?
Yeah, I'm totally with Chris. There is absolutely no reason for a PS5 version, especially if you've seen how it looks on PS5 currently, is just incredible. So yeah, I think it's most likely working on a sequel, but who knows? I mean, maybe is there a chance that they're going to do DLC for Ghost still at this point? Is that ship sailed?
I think that ship. Well, I don't know, because I feel like it's easy to say that ship sailed, but they don't really seem to be supporting almost anything with DLC. It's not, it would almost be unusual if it did get DLC, because what else? I mean, nothing else got single player DLC with the exception of like Spider-Man and The Last of Us. It seems like those are the only games. Like, I don't think God of War didn't even get anything, right? So Days Gone didn't get like some extra map, like, so you would expect a game like Days Gone to get like, their point lookout or some shit. But
no, this is, I mean, I think Legends was their DLC. I think that's their fulfillment of any kind of like, downloadable extension to, Ghost of Tsushima. And it's a great one. And it's one that I don't think they need to outdo at all. I think that game is done, and I think that's fine. And I think they're heads down, like in the books of the sequel right now. I think that's what they're working on. So because that'd be nice, yeah. No way. Like, if they actually try to sell a native PS5 version of Ghost of Tsushima, I would be beyond baffled.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for them to do that with almost anything. I think The Last of Us Part 2 it will be easier for them to do with some of them that are at 30 frames and maybe stuck at 1080 or some bizarre version of 4K. That's not, true. But I don't know. I wanted to throw that out there because it is exciting. Dave, I don't know if you're listening to this or not. I'm not trying to get you in trouble. But we do mind the resumes. So How about this one, number 9? A compelling report from website Video Game Chronicle. And these guys are coming up all the time now, by the way.
Yeah.
They're going to come up again in this website, or in this show, actually. Indicates a new KOTOR, or Knights of the Old Republic, is indeed in development. The website relays word from a Star Wars insider known as Bespin Bulletin, which is another awesome name, who is purportedly well-connected, though other trusted sources are likewise indicating the same. What may be most interesting if this rumor is true is that publisher Electronic Arts and its developer BioWare may not be involved at all, which is interesting considering it was BioWare that brought KOTOR to market back in 2003 when the game launched on Xbox and PC. However, BioWare was at the time an independent developer, and LucasArts itself funded the game and acted as publisher, so EA's involvement isn't that surprising, especially with Disney's, isn't that unsurprising, I should say, especially with Disney openly courting other developers to make Star Wars games for the first time in a decade, including EA rival Ubisoft. Knights of the Old Republic, a landmark Star Wars game, is one of the industry's most beloved open-world RPGs ever, and has never seen release outside of the original Xbox, PC, iOS, and Android. Its sequel, KOTOR 2, The Sith Lords, launched on Xbox in very late 2004 and PC in 2005, and was developed by Obsidian, which is now owned by Microsoft. EA has since stepped in with its MMORPG, The Old Republic, which launched in 2011. That's the last time we saw anything about KOTOR. That game is still supported, or anything about The Old Republic, I should say. It's not technically KOTOR. I fucking love KOTOR. I actually wrote the strategy. I bought an Xbox for KOTOR, and I wrote the strategy guide for IGN in the summer of 2003. I remember it very well. And I have a really fond place for that game. Chris, are you a KOTOR guy? Because you're an Xbox guy.
I am an Xbox guy, but I did not get into really RPGs until significantly later than that. I think until like the Mass Effect era was like when I was starting to dive into like, you know, Mass Effect and Oblivion and Skyrim and Fallout, and that was my introduction to RPGs. And I have seen parts of KOTOR that look good, but it also looks a little bit aged. And I can tell based on how little I enjoy playing the first Mass Effect gameplay wise that I can only imagine that, you know, KOTOR is just a tad worse just based on timing. But it's been a game that I've been curious about. I've been thinking about going back and maybe jumping into it. I just don't know. I feel like it's been hyped up so much for me that I wonder if I'll really enjoy it.
You probably won't. I mean, it is surprising that it hasn't been remade because it is pretty crude. I mean, when you think about the original Xbox, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
When this thing was relevant. It's probably going to be, I mean, BioWare came a long way since then, but Dustin, are you keen on a new KOTOR, or are you moved on with your life?
So I need the audience to make an agreement with me that they will not tell Maddie this, but I think I played, like I rented it once when I was, you know, a lad, and then never went back. And so I don't want Maddie to kick me off of ham radio because Maddie is the KOTOR guy of YouTube. But I'm interested in the idea. Honestly, I kind of feel like they should remake it because it's so beloved by its fans. And I think, like what Chris said, it's definitely dated at this point. But yeah, I just am excited about anything Star Wars that does not involve the same era and the same characters. Give us something new. So KOTOR is exactly that. So
this week's episode of Sacred Symbols is brought to you in part by BetterHelp. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. Taking good care of your mental health is incredibly important, especially during trying times. Life begins to stack up for all of us, and it's essential to have someone you can talk to bounce things off of, garner advice from, and ultimately live a happier and healthier existence based on useful and actionable feedback. Heck, sometimes it's just nice to have someone to talk to you who can actually listen to you and hear you. Whether you're struggling with motivation or stress, or perhaps you're even depressed or anxious, BetterHelp can, well, help. Problems in relationships and friendships or at work, feelings of insecurity or inadequacy, and much more. These are issues every single one of us has and will continue to deal with because that's life. BetterHelp is simply a quicker, cheaper, and easier way to connect with someone who can truly listen and help. And it has the added benefit of being more affordable than in-person therapy. You can even see someone in under 48 hours. So give BetterHelp a try and find more tranquility, peace, and happiness in your life. Go to betterhelp.com/symbols. That's BetterHelp.com/SYMBOLS. And get 10% off your first month of sessions. Again, that's betterhelp.com/symbols. Take good care of yourselves, my friends. It's incredibly important. BetterHelp.com/simples can help. All right, and number 10, another rumor from Video Game Chronicle indicates that Resident Evil 4 Remake, which was ostensibly revealed by the website back in 2020, has apparently been quote-unquote overhauled behind the scenes, with difficulties erupting during production between the two collaborating dev teams. According to the website's report, Capcom Division 1, which is the internal Capcom-owned team in charge of the Resident Evil franchise, quote, has been brought in to lead a new direction, end quote, following disagreements arising with M2, which is a Japanese team founded by Tetsuya Minami, who co-founded and was the CEO of Platinum Games, which in part was founded by ex-Capcom employees. M2 worked in some capacity on 2020's Resident Evil 3 remake, though the website says in part that, quote, multiple sources have indicated that following a key project review late last year, it was decided that M2's role on the RE4 remake would be significantly reduced, ellipsis. It's believed that the disagreements that led to M2's reduced role involved the studio's desire to stick faithfully to the template of the original Resident Evil 4, partly influenced by backlash to Resident Evil 3 remake, which did not include significant portions of the original PlayStation game, much to fans' disappointment. And then there's another ellipsis. Sources said that Resident Evil 4 Remake would now be partially rebooted under the new mandate, which could see its release delayed by as much as a year to 2023, end quote. Resident Evil 4, widely considered the best Resident Evil game ever released since the series began in 1996, first came to GameCube and PS2 in 2005. Chris, we were just talking about this last week. I'm disappointed if this rumor is true that they are moving away from we just had this conversation about what they should do with Resident Evil 4. I really feel like staying true to it is so important. And I'm glad this story brought up that Resident Evil 3 Remake seems to have been kind of castigated because it didn't stick true to it. When you when you remake a game, you remake the game, but then there's Final Fantasy VII Remake. And so I guess they can do whatever they want, and maybe it'll come out nicely. But anyway, what do you think the right call is here? Something new or something safe?
I think you got to really commit to either. You know, I don't think you can have like a mixed bag here. I think you got to be like, listen, you're either going to make Resident Evil 4 completely different, and it's going to be insane, and it's going to be just completely like this completely new experience that just sort of happens to play with the template of Resident Evil 4, or you stick to it like to a T, make something that really is a love letter to that game, with all its quirkiness and all of its weird art design and all of its weird direction. I don't know. I don't know what I would prefer. I would just prefer that one of those directions is committed to entirely, because I feel like Resident Evil 4 is such a weird game to me, because like I've played it recently and it doesn't feel that old to me. Like there are parts of it that feel a little bit stilted. And there's like obviously like the way that the camera moves around is a little bit awkward, and the fact that you can't move while shooting feels antiquated, especially now since Resident Evil 2 was so good and did such a good job of still maintaining that fear despite giving you some player control and some player autonomy. I think it's just a game that I think is still good enough to just kind of, you could take the base game and just tweak it a little bit, and I think it would be fine. Like I really don't think it's. But I don't know. It's weird because that's I grew up with that generation of games, so I'm just like innately in tune with it. So maybe some new players would be like, "Oh, this is ancient and old and like completely unplayable." That's also possible. I just think it's in this weird, awkward space for a remake to exist, where it still looks good by modern standards, and I don't know how you would make it that good without like fucking with it too much. I don't know. I'm a mixed bag with this.
Where do you stand, Dustin?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, I don't have a huge connection to Resident Evil 4 since I think I played it on the Wii version, if you guys remember.
That's the best version of the game.
Yeah, it was really cool.
It's a really, really, really fun version of the game, I think.
Right. You got to imagine that they're looking at like how Square Enix remade Final Fantasy VII Remake, and obviously those are very different games from very different eras, but they're looking at the level of quality and weighing, how much Square changed with Final Fantasy VII, and they're trying to figure out what is that balance. So I think the key, though, is just that it's clear that there's a lot of consideration being done. So
Yeah, I mean, they could have just been like, well, we're committed to this already. And so
right.
I do think that there's something about Final Fantasy VII Remake here on their minds, because Resident Evil 4 is the Final Fantasy VII of that series, if that makes any sense. That is the most important game. It's the one that they need to get right. And I actually think the game is somewhat antiquated, but I think the Chris makes a good point where it's now dealing with late GameCube and PS2 games as opposed to PS1 game remakes. So now we have to ask ourselves again the necessity of some of these. Like, I played Onimusha. They just relaunched that last year, Capcom, or 2 years ago now, on PS4 as is, with some new control schemes, but it was still in 4.3, and I mean, that's a 4-year older game than Resident Evil 4, and it felt fun. So I mean, the camera was a little messy, but so I agree with you, Dustin. I think that them being deliberate is good because they realize they have to do this one right. This is the one they have to get. And after this one comes out, then I think we are in a decided place where there are no more remakes after that, because Resident Evil 5 looks fine and so on. So, ow, I just hit my fucking foot on the desk.
You did that last week, right when the show was ending, too.
Yeah. I'm always shifting around. I can't stay still. I don't know what's wrong with me.
I do the same thing.
Number 11. 3 sizable international game developers have new investors. For starters, the French studio Don't Nod Entertainment, best known for 2015's Life is Strange and 2018's Life is Strange 2, as well as 2013's Remember Me and 2018's Vampire, among others, have issued new shares worth about 40 million euros, with 75% of those shares going to infamous Chinese megacorporation Tencent, which will in return receive a minority share of Don't Nod. Tencent also acquired a majority stake in Clay Entertainment, for unknown terms, I'm sorry. Clay is the Canadian studio behind 2010's Shank, 2012's Mark of the Ninja, and 2013's Don't Starve, among others. The deal was announced on Clay's dedicated forums, and perhaps to Tencent's credit, Clay notes that Tencent, in part, quote, is the only company that we felt would let us retain the level of control we demand, end quote, confirming there were other suitors over the years, which isn't a surprise. Tencent, which employs more than 60,000 people, is one of the world's largest companies and is technically the most invested company in the video game sector in the world. However, as a Chinese company, the Chinese Communist government is all over Tencent, and the two sides are widely seen as working in open concert on issues ranging from Hong Kong, censorship, copyright theft, and more. Finally, French publisher Nacon revealed that it has purchased Australian studio Big Ant Studios for 35 million euros. Big Ant Studios began as a contract team before going all in on tennis, rugby, cricket, lacrosse, and other more niche sports. It most recently released AO Tennis 2 and Tennis World Tour 2 on PS4 last year. In unrelated news, Nacon also revealed the long-awaited Lord of the Rings game it's publishing from Daedalic Entertainment, called Gollum, has been delayed and will now launch in 2022. So nothing crazy here. I mean, I don't know about this. Again, I don't know. I don't know how much more I can say about this. I just don't like Chinese communist money in the gaming industry. I don't like it.
Yeah, every time it happens, it's uncomfortable, and that's really all I can say about it. It's the same. Like, I'm never gonna feel like, oh yay, like there's never gonna be a situation where I'm like, sick, dude. Tencent just invested in like IO. Hell yeah, dude. Like, it's never gonna be like a moment where I'm like, popping those party poppers and like blowing the party streamers. It's like it's always gonna be just like this
yeah
moment.
Yeah,
I agree. I mean, there's. I don't know. Well, do you have any? Do you care about this at all, Dustin?
The only thing that I just find interesting is that Don't Nod is such a socially progressive company with its characters and its games, and so to potentially get Chinese influence where a lot of those progressive qualities of their games would not be tolerated.
Yeah, it's a joke.
Is interesting.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, this is a country that throws Muslims basically internment camps. I mean, this is I don't know. Again, who would I mean, if Tencent came to me and says like, here's $40 million, I'd be like, all right, I'm going to fuck off now. So, but maybe I wouldn't. I mean, when push comes to shove, I don't think that there's anything necessarily uncapitalistic about it. I just don't even know what the point is of Tencent even buying these companies at this point. It's like, well, why do you want Clay? Like, no offense. It's like, but what do you want? Why them? What is the game here? It just seems like they're buying almost anyone.
Yeah.
That's like willing to sell.
Indiscriminate.
Right.
It's like completely scatterbrained. Just throw a bunch of darts at like a bulletin board full of random companies and buy whichever one will take the offer. It's very weird. There doesn't seem to be much strategy.
Yeah, I agree. So, Well, nonetheless, let's see what else is on here, boys. Just a couple more. Number 12, there's some video game related TV and movie news to get through, including yet more on the never-ending saga surrounding the Uncharted movie. The film, initially slated to launch on July 16th of this year, has been pushed to February 11th of 2022. Almost certainly due more to waiting for butts to be back in theater seats due to COVID than any production issues, as the film publicly wrapped filming in October of 2020. The film stars Tom Holland as Nathan Drake and Mark Wahlberg as Sully, and is directed by Zombieland and Venom director Ruben Fleischer. Better news perhaps comes in the form of a new Tomb Raider animated series for Netflix. Netflix itself announced its anime-style Tomb Raider series, one set after the recent Tomb Raider trilogy from developer Crystal Dynamics that spanned 2013's Tomb Raider, 2015's Rise of the Tomb Raider, and 2018's Shadow of the Tomb Raider, all of which are on PlayStation 4, with the first also on PS3. Remember when Shadow of the Tomb Raider leaked because some guy was looking at a deck on his laptop in Montreal on the subway? That was awesome. Yeah. All right, let's see. The series writer and executive producer is Tasha Huo, who is also working on The Witcher Blood Origin for Netflix. And finally, publication The Hollywood Reporter reports that famous comedian and actor Kevin Hart has signed on to the film adaptation of Borderlands to play Roland. It's an interesting casting decision because I don't see Roland as a Kevin Hart type character, but recall that Cate Blanchett is starring in the film as Lilith, which we already knew, and that Craig Mazin, the creator of HBO's Chernobyl, who is also writing and executive producing HBO's The Last of Us series, wrote this script. Eli Roth of Cabin Fever and Hostel fame is directing. Dustin, you were shaking your head there. What bothers you?
Everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I just honestly, you'd have to pay me to go see a Borderlands movie.
I love Borderlands, and I feel the same way. They're fun to play. I don't need to go and. How are they going to make it look cel shaded? Are they going to do the makeup tricks? Like that the cosplayers do. They look cool. I just don't know.
It could be cool if they do like kind of like some Sin City type deal. Like if it's like a visually interesting kind of experience, that could be cool. I could see it being like a visually cool movie. Just because Borderlands is so absurdist, and especially like with the absurdity of like some of the guns, it would be cool to see. Like it would be kind of cool to see that fleshed out in any kind of like real cinematic way. But at the same time, it's like Kevin Hart. Like what? That is a sincerely befuddling choice in casting.
Isn't Roland the like British black guy, right? That's gives you or am I thinking of someone else?
I don't remember if he was British or not, but he's
like the guy that gives you in Borderlands 2 in the beginning. He's the one that gives you all the missions, right? Isn't that Roland? Or I might be thinking of someone else.
Roland is the oh my god, Roland is the we sound like idiots right now. It's been a minute.
I mean, dude, how much can we know about every game?
I was going to say, you guys are already talking about Borderlands, so.
Roland is Borderlands soldier class. Oh, he's the soldier.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That makes a little more sense. I thought he was the guy. What the hell is the black guy in Borderlands 2? You know what I'm talking about? The guy with like the mechanical arm or something like that?
Right.
And he gives you all the missions in the beginning? Anyway, that's what I thought he was. I guess I'm not.
Spit it out.
What'd you say?
For good reason.
I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Oh, so I was saying your mind spit it out for a very good reason.
Oh,
you just forgot.
I don't see Roland in Kevin Hart at all. Like that is so weird.
I actually played as Roland, so I think I would actually know that character's name because he's the soldier. I always play as like the machine gun guy.
Yeah, I just Cate Blanchett. There's Lilith. It's like I mean, I guess. What could the story here be? Like, what are they doing? Are they doing the first game?
Yeah, I don't know if it's gonna be like Handsome Jack or something, or Pandora with the vault and stuff.
You have to do, if you're gonna mine the games for content, it's got to be the second one, because that's the best one, and that's the one with like the most memorable characters in it. Like a lot of the work is done for you in that regard, because you have pretty good characterization and memorable people. But
I love the obese woman mechanic. She's awesome. I like that character design.
Yeah, I don't know. This would be better as an animated project. I'm actually like interested in this the Tomb Raider like animated. I think animated series are like the best way to transition from games to like cinematic media. Like I think that's like the best as opposed to just like these weird live action. Do you remember the live action Tomb Raider movie that came out in like oh my god, like 2013 or like something like that?
Yeah, who was in that?
Just somebody.
I think it was a lot more recent.
Tomb Raider wiki. Tomb Raider film. Oh, 2018.
Yeah.
What?
Alicia Vikander. Is that how you say it?
2018?
I think so. That's
Time
what it says,
makes no sense.
March 2, 2018.
Holy shit, dude. I thought that was a full ass decade ago.
Let's see how much it made. Actually made a lot of money. It's surprising that they didn't do another one. Oh, a sequel is in development, of course. Okay. Well, we'll keep an eye out on that or not. You don't like Borderlands, Dustin?
No.
You have no
I
taste.
don't. I've played a lot of Borderlands 2. I just think that like it's just the story and the way it tries to be funny is so unfunny to me. It's mainly that actually, is that I find it so unfunny that the entire experience is miserable to me.
Oh, that's fair. I think it's more, I always interpreted it more as absurdist than supposed to be funny. Almost a little bit like some Monty Python where it's not really overtly funny. It's just absurd. And that's what makes it funny. You know?
Yeah. It reminds
like,
me
think about like, you know, a lot of like, you know, life. I don't know. I don't want to get into Monty Python right now. Anyway, we're running long. That's like the last thing in the world we need to do. Oh, by the way, Dave Ramos wrote in and said, "Hey, Womb Raiders, with the news of the upcoming Tomb Raider anime taking place after the new trilogy of games, do you think this is the end of the new Tomb Raider games in this series for the foreseeable future? Or will this lead to a new Tomb Raider game also set in the same timeline? Regardless, Chris, will you please lend us your power and will some new Tomb Raider games into existence? Please and thank you." Chris, rest. Because they already announced, and I don't know if people saw this because they didn't really overtly do it very loudly, but they released a Crystal Dynamics 25th anniversary, or no, Tomb Raider 25th anniversary video in which they said they are making a new game. Did you guys see this thing? But they're trying to unify. It's kind of cool, actually. They're trying to unify the old core games with their games in some way, and that's going to be the next game. So whatever that, I think that's kind of a cool idea, and I'm really interested to see how that works out. Yeah,
I hope that they've spent a lot of time on Lara Croft as a character, and hopefully they can get her to the point where she is the character in the beginning of Tomb Raider, like the original. Because I loved Tomb Raider when I was a kid. It doesn't play well right now. Like if you went back and played it, terrible. But at the time, it was like really cool. Like I really loved it, and part of that was just like she was just so badass. Like she was so fucking cool. Like
yeah, she's awesome.
Even when I was a kid and I wasn't thinking about like anything like even remotely like sexual at all. Like I know she's like a sex icon in like the video game industry, but like even before that I was like, this chick is fucking cool. And
I was the same way.
And in like, you know, the new games, it started her off and it was like, oh, she's just a normal person. But like eventually she'll become the Tomb Raider. And in the last Tomb Raider game, I think was it Shadow or Rise?
Shadow was the last one.
Shadow was the last one.
Yeah.
Shadow, I liked that game. You know, it was enjoyable, and I was like, okay, this is fun. And then there's a moment where they could have made that character, they could have flipped the switch on that. They could have flipped the switch, be like, she's Tomb Raider. She's the Tomb Raider now. And they just flipped it, and then flipped it back off. And it was the most frustrating thing, because it was about to be like this moment where I was like, oh my God, my time with these games have been justified. Just seeing this character arc fulfill, and then they immediately just went back on it, and it was the most disappointing thing. So if they can get to a point like that, that would be nice. But I feel like they kind of missed an opportunity when they made Shadow of the Tomb Raider to just do that already.
It'll be interesting to see, how they can unify everything. And I actually have the same experience with Tomb Raider. I played Tomb Raider 3 first. I got it when I was in 8th grade for Christmas, and I just thought she was cool. I think everyone around me was suspicious that I was playing it because I liked her big titties, but really when you look at her, I'm like, even as a red-blooded straight man now, I'm like, I look at that and I'm like, people thought this was hot. Like
it is weird. Yeah.
It's like, it's fucking insane. She's like, she looks like ridiculous. She doesn't look like a human. It's not even the boobs. Like nothing about her looks right.
She looks animated. She looks like purely animated, but I mean, it's the internet. People are into all sorts of weird shit, but
that's true.
I don't know. She was a really cool character, and I hope they get her to that point where she's just this badass, she's a badass character again.
Do you know that people dress up in animal outfits and fuck other people dressed up as animals?
In Tomb Raider?
No, just generally speaking.
No, I know. I'm very familiar.
Number 13 is a wrap-up, boys. Website Gamatsu reports 2D RPG Aground is coming to PlayStation 4 on February 11th. Platformer Kaze and the Wild Mask comes to PS4 on March 26th. RTS space-based Startopia comes to PS4 and PS5 on March 26th. Adventure game Willie Morgan and The Curse of Bonetown and the visual novel Dry Drowning are both coming to PS4 this spring. And 3D shooter Little Witch No Beta is coming to both PS4 and PS5 by April of 2022. The website also reports that Zelda-like game Oceanhorn 2, Knights of the Lost Realm, is coming to PlayStation 5, though no sort of release date was given. You can, of course, play the original Oceanhorn on PS4 and Vita as well, just in case you wanted to go check it out. Website Push Square reports 30-minute puzzle game Arag is coming to PS4 and PS5 on February 5th. I'm really excited about that, 30 minutes. And it's only $3, which I think is pretty cool as well. Exactly what we've been talking about, right? Exploring all these different ways you can go about things. And 2D motorbike game Elastomania, first launched on PC in January of 2000, is getting a PS4 and PS5 port at some point this year. A lot of people were really excited about that. I never heard it, but apparently that was like a really popular turn of the century PC game. I feel like I should have known that, but I don't know anything about that. The website also reports the PS5 port of the 2019 PS4 game Terminator Resistance has been delayed to April 30th. It's now going to come out the same day Returnal comes out. THQ Nordic-owned developer Studio 101 has announced its long-awaited open-world action RPG Biomutant has a release date on PlayStation 4 of May 25th. That game looks really cool. People should go look that up.
The cat, like the Blinks looking thing, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
I saw that at PAX.
Yeah, it's been forever since the game was announced.
Crazy.
I think THQ picked it up at some point and then they went dark again.
Yeah.
Website IGN reports a new action RPG called Batora Lost Haven is under development, notable because it's from Stormind Games, the team behind 2018's popular PS4 horror game Remothered Tormented Fathers, with its sequel Remothered Broken Porcelain released on PS4 last fall. And finally, The Elder Scrolls Online on PS4 is getting a huge new expansion on June 8th called Blackwood. Apparently, it's a prequel to Oblivion.
Ooh.
Be interested to see that.
That's something.
As they continue to do all this shit in that game they do like all sorts of weird shit in that game. You know, I think they went to Skyrim once and some other stuff. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
All right. I see someone has highlighted Willie Morgan and The Curse of Bonetown. Who did it?
I forgot that it shows you guys the highlight. I just think that name is so funny.
Yeah, it's horrible. I think, it's an adventure game.
Willie Morgan and The Curse of Bonetown. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a good name. I do like that name Dry Drowning. It sounds horrifying, actually.
Yeah.
All right, boys. Let's end with 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from Patreon. Remember, you can support us on Patreon to submit your inquiries. We've read them throughout the show. Patreon.com/LastStandMedia for early ad-free access to our shows as well. Sacred Symbols Plus, get your name in the credits, all sorts of stuff. Nathan McGinnis wrote into us and said, "Hello, gents. Hope all is well in your worlds. Why do you think that a lot of big multiplayer games are still yet to have crossplay enabled? Games like The Division 2, Borderlands 3 are prime examples of games that I believe would help out those online worlds a lot. I figured after Call of Duty made the jump to crossplay in 2019 that many would follow, but I feel like I have yet to see this more in the AAA space. My fingers are crossed that Back 4 Blood decides to include crossplay, as it would be great to play with my friends on PC and Xbox. Love the show. Keep up the great work. As always, cheers from Prince Edward Island, up in Canada. You don't have to say up in Canada. We know where PEI is. Lovely maritime province, of course. All right, so I really want to hear from you on this one first, Chris, because he brings up Back 4 Blood. But also, you're a multiplayer guy. I'm wondering how important you think this crossplay is. I actually must admit that I didn't know that either of those games didn't have it until he wrote in. So do you feel like this is important?
Hugely. Yeah, I think it might not be important to the company, but like I think it's just like an objectively good thing to not have like this barrier of entry or this weird barrier preventing you from playing with people just because they might have a different preference of library from you. Like if all my friends like Back 4 Blood and we want to play Back 4 Blood, we should be able to play Back 4 Blood together. Like even if like some of my friends might prefer like, oh, hey, you know, like I like God of War and I like Last of Us, so I got a PlayStation. It's like, oh, well, I'm like a Halo and Gears guy and I like playing in my living room, so I got myself an Xbox. But these people are still friends with each other and they've still bought the same game. So why shouldn't they? Especially when it's clear that like if Call of Duty can do it and Fortnite can do it and Rocket League can do it and Destiny is working on doing it sometime in 2021. And like, you know, this is just becoming like an obvious thing. It's like, I think it makes the sale of a console even just more like I almost think it's like it's a better way to sell consoles too, because now people are like completely unhindered. People are actually buying things for the exclusives. It's like, oh, hey, you know, like I want God of War, so I'm going to get a PlayStation. And I know that regardless of what choice all my friends make, I can still play with them. And that's like a good sense of security because you're not feeling like you're locked out just because you've made the wrong purchase, even though like the wrong purchase for you was the one that you wanted. Like, I feel like people shouldn't feel that way. And I think it's just good. It's good optics for a company as well. Like, no one's ever going to complain that I can play with all of my friends. Like, that's never going to be like a complaint that anybody has. And I think it's worth pursuing. I think all games should just strive their best to launch this way.
Jeremy wrote into us. No last name. So let's say Jeremy Roenick of the Chicago Blackhawks. He wrote in and said, "Greetings, gentlemen. In the year of our Lord 2021, various people are still bringing up GamerGate and using it as a boogeyman for irrelevant things. Colin is someone who was in the industry at the time, and Chris, who was an active spectator. Dustin is here as well. Why does this still keep getting brought up outside of the original purpose all these years later? Is this just leading to a GamerGate 2.0 with a bastardized message?" Dustin, I'm curious why we're even talking about this still. And then I realize that it's because it comes up where people do feel like they need to make this comparison to this event, which is so weird. You're seeing it actually with the stock thing.
Yeah.
Right?
That's exactly
which is
what I was gonna say.
I don't even really understand what GamerGate was anymore. I mean, I think I was in the industry at the time. I feel like I had a grasp on it. Then I really feel like in revisionist history has kind of made it into something it really wasn't. And I don't know exactly what it even means anymore. What do you think about this persistence of this term and this kind of nebulousness surrounding it?
So from what I've gathered, especially with today, like you mentioned, and it being brought up in this stock situation, is that GamerGate seems to be brought up by the industry more than anyone else, and always being like, this is the remnants of GamerGate. This is how this is connected to GamerGate. And it's always grasping at straws. It's like, why is everything connected to this event that no one can really... I mean, there are clear events that we can talk about with GamerGate, right? But overall, it's become very ambiguous, and somehow everything is related to it. So I don't really know to sum up everything I'm saying. I don't know.
GamerGate is brought up whenever the internet does something that is concerted. Like whenever a lot of people on the internet gather together to do a thing, that is essentially GamerGate. And it depends on, like, it's only GamerGate when it's like viewed as like controversial. Like if they're tanking the stock exchange because a bunch of people on Reddit decided to gather together and do it, that's GamerGate. But if a bunch of people gathered together and, like, I don't know, raised money to fix like a fox, like an Inari shrine in Japan because they played Ghost of Tsushima, that's not, because that would be a positive connotation of concerted, of people on the internet gathering together and concerting their or consolidating their power into a single thing. And I don't know, it's just become a boogeyman. I think largely because I think it's a lot of different factors. I think it's the way that media sensationalized it in the first place. I think it's the way that the algorithm of YouTube back in the day would kind of propagate it in a specific way where, you know, GamerGate was just ultimately, like, GamerGate was a hashtag. That's literally, ostensibly, like, and functionally, that's all it was. It was literally just like a, hey, this thing is going on in the gaming industry and people are complaining about it. Let's throw this hashtag on. Because I've seen videos with the hashtag GamerGate on it that have nothing to do with anything. Like, even I did it back in the day. I would just throw that hashtag at the end of videos just because I knew that people were searching for it. I was like, hey man, SEO is king. And I'm doing what I got to do here. But, you know, I think just between, and by the way, maybe I shouldn't say this, but there are people behind the scenes who were prime victims of GamerGate who are pretty tired of having their situation related to, like, everything that ever happens since it's happened. Like the idea that people are like, Donald Trump or like the Capitol siege was GamerGate. I saw that too. That was a take that I saw. The Capitol
That's a take, dude. Ooh. And I gotta leave after that take.
And listen, man, the people who you are presumably defending don't like that. Like, they don't like thinking that, like, something that happened to them is solely responsible for the crumbling of society and massive historical events. Like, nobody wants to feel that way. and they're not happy about it. And I, just don't do that. It's been dead for what, 7 years at this point?
Yeah, it's been, I mean, I was going to say, I have such a clear memory of when it was all happening because it was at the end of my time at IGN, towards the end of my time there. But I went for my 30th birthday. I went to Kentucky that fall to go to some bourbon distilleries, and I went to like this nice dinner in Louisville. And I remember like one of the guys that I had met there was like, "So what's this GamerGate thing?" And I remember being like even at the time I was like, I don't want to talk about this. And it really did become this amorphous thing, because you were saying one of the things that's interesting is people don't want to relive their trauma. I absolutely understand that. I also feel like on the other side are like people that want to relive it over and over again because that was their shit. Like not only people that were the attackers, obviously, but people that were, I would say in some way more so sometimes, the people that were victimized by it because that was like their time in the sun, their ability to get attention to their causes or raise money for their projects or whatever. So yeah, I feel like there's like some sort of reason to go back to the well,
Yeah, I mean, it's when it's a claim to fame, regardless of, especially when it's a claim to fame that's completely amorphous, that people really can't even remember all that clearly. Like I barely remember it,
Right.
But like, dude, man, it's been so long. Just put it to bed. Even back when that was happening, I remember being like, we're doing the Watergate thing. Like you're just putting gate at the end of it.
Yeah, it doesn't even make any sense.
Like, it's the internet's just. I have a feeling like I always have this thing in my head where it's like aliens come down and they land. It's been like millions of years since humanity's last breath, and they're scouring through the wreckage, and all they find is just hashtag GamerGate.
Oh shit!
Because it's like a Prothean ruin.
Yeah, like nothing. Like it just never dies. It's wild.
Yeah.
Well, and I think.
No, I'm sorry, Dustin. Go ahead.
Sorry, just one other thing that I just quick thought is that I think part of the reason why it never dies is that it's easy because like the common thought is that GamerGate equals harassment and all the negative things, right? And I think that it was mostly that. I'm not arguing saying that there was. I mean, there's so many sides to every story.
Yeah, I think over time, eventually it became like just like a complete shit show of just like people attacking people for no reason.
Right.
And that's
so
that's
now,
what it eventually.
Now, anytime someone speaks out against games journalism, whether it's true or not, it's like so easy to just be like GamerGate. That's GamerGate stuff. You're supporting GamerGate. It's like, no. Like it's just like an easy shield, right? To be like, oh, that's harassment. That's GamerGate. It's like, no, come on.
I'm of the mind. I've said this on publicly, so it's not like a news story, but I remember being at meetings at IGN where we were trying to figure out like, how do we respond and what do we do? And my whole thing was like, just ignore it. Like everyone should just ignore it so it goes away. And I feel like people just couldn't help themselves. And it just, the Lee Alexanders and the Brianna Woos and all these people of the world. And then on one side, and then like all of these, degenerate people that, I'm not saying everyone on either side was degenerate. I'm just saying there are a lot of fucking assholes on the other side. And these people just couldn't help themselves. And they catapulted this thing. It's another example of what we're talking about, actually, of like almost crowdsourced energy. I remember being scared that they were going to come after me. And I don't even remember, like, for no reason, because I remember feeling at the time like, wow, this is a really organized mob of people that are coming for people. And then like over a few weeks, you realize like, oh, who gives a shit? Let's move on with our lives.
Yeah, I remember early on, like the biggest concern was like, hey, just recuse yourself from writing about people that or at least like make that public knowledge, because that was like initially like one of the things, because there were a lot of articles that were written about friends of people that they weren't transparent about that information. And I remember that very clearly. And I remember when a lot of those sites, Kotaku and like all these other sites, like they updated their, I don't know if terms of service is the right word, the code of, they updated.
It's like a code of ethics or like a style guide. Yeah.
Yeah. They uploaded them. They updated them in accordance to what the criticism was. And I remember being like, oh yeah, all right, well, that's it then. But then people like kept running with it, and then it was just all right. Well, then it's not about this thing anymore, is it? It's just like any hashtag. Hashtags go off the rails all the time. Like there are people who like you could see, BLM hashtags, right? And you could agree with the sentiment, right? But then like every now and again, some psycho is going to use that hashtag. You can't police that.
No, you can't. That's the other thing is like just guilt by association. I believe in your freedom of association without necessarily being judged for that as well. So it became a lot about like degrees of separation. I got sucked into all that shit later on. So it does suck. But I was going to ask, how many people, like what percentage of people do you think that use the term Gamergate don't realize why Watergate was called Watergate? Like, do you think that some people think Watergate was called Watergate because, like, I'm not saying they think water was gated. I'm saying, do they realize that it was just the name of a hotel and that the gate suffix has nothing to do with anything at all?
I would wager most people. I would wager the majority of people don't know that specific thing, but I would wager that like a decent amount of people understand that gate probably doesn't have anything to do with specifically a controversy. I think it's just a useful suffix on the internet specifically because it's catchy. It's so catchy that this thing that hasn't been relevant for half a decade now is still brought up. So
Biden Gate. That's gonna be the next. That's gonna be the next one.
God. Help us.
Nick Believe It wrote in and said, I think the medium has proven that this want for next-gen only titles is a fool's dream. People should be excited for games, but never hyped, because they will be fun or satisfying to play, period. I'm scared Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is being overhyped because of this bullshit pressure, and many will be unnecessarily underwhelmed if the game isn't just a good 3D platformer, but doesn't feel next-gen. Remember 2014? Infamous Second Son wasn't anyone's GOTY, but Wolfenstein The New Order, Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor, and Dragon Age Inquisition were. All cross-gen games. Hell, is literally anyone complaining about Hitman 3 because it's cross-gen? Being next-gen only is not the same thing as being a better game, damn it. Dustin, I want to throw this one to you, because first of all, this medium, the medium has become kind of a meme of itself, I guess, because it's like, really the only Xbox exclusive per se. And it's not very good. I don't know why anyone's surprised by that. Because didn't Bloober Team make it? I mean, they're not a very good. No offense, they're not a very good team. So I'm wondering, like, am I overstating the case for next gen? You just put up a video of me making the case, right? From Sacred Symbols Plus. I had Dustin cut out this clip of me from Sacred Symbols Plus making the case of why I feel like it's important that PS5 have its own games. Am I wrong?
No, I think it's a very complicated situation because I feel like it depends on the game and how they're trying to sell it, right? Like, we saw the demo of Resident Evil 7, and it clearly looks incredible and way better than the PS4 version, I'm sure, will look. And so I think it is a situation where they made that game with the next-gen hardware in mind, and they're able to downscale it. Now, in the case of Ratchet & Clank, though, they are selling it on the SSD as the main factor. So I feel like, yeah, they've put the pressure on themselves with that because they use the features of the new hardware as a selling factor of the game. And I think that's why, and when I was editing that video and I was thinking about it, I think you specifically mentioned about PlayStation first party pulling cross-gen. I think that's what's more concerning because that's the development teams that you want to see take as much advantage of that hardware as possible. And I think that, again, sorry, I keep referencing the video from Sacred Symbols Plus, but a game like Horizon is a game we want to see exclusively developed for PS5 in order to take full advantage of not just, the GPU, CPU and stuff like that, but the SSD, I think. And that's what they were selling it on. The PS5 was the SSD and its ability to make entirely new games that weren't possible before because of that instant streaming of data into the GPU. So I feel like I just spit out a lot of info, but yeah, it's complicated.
But also, it's important not to just pretend that, just because Second Son wasn't a game of the year doesn't mean that, titles on new hardware are historically pretty important. Like, that's a weird, that might have been not a great time, that might have not been a great launch. But, I mean, we have a lot of examples of games right out the gate, that make a compelling case for the hardware. I mean, the original Xbox with Combat Evolved was, like, massive. Like, it was important to have a game like that was not possible on previous generation hardware, that made a case for you to go out and get this thing. That was also good. Like, there's examples of games that are brand new, that are technologically innovative, that are like, you know, first on the market on a new machine, that are impressive. You know, in fact, I think that happens, you know, enough to where people feel like it's important to have something like that at the beginning. And, you know, yeah, Second Son wasn't amazing, you know, but I also think there's just better competition now. Like back in when the original Xbox launched, or back when the PS2 launched, you know, chances are you were getting your best shit from first party, you know, whereas now it's like third party stepping shit up. You know, there's a lot of great shit from third party. Hitman 3, it might be my game of the year by the end of all this. Like I could see that happening. And, you know, I don't know, like I think there's too much of a weird this is just a weird mentality to me.
It's interesting too, because I think it goes both ways. Like sometimes a game becomes so tied in with the hardware and how important it is to the hardware that people forget when a game came out and how important it was and how much time was lost. You know, Sonic the Hedgehog on Genesis came out in 1991, and it's a lot of people think that's a launch game, but it's actually a game that came out 2 years after Genesis launched, and that it was so important and so good that they basically relaunched the console as if they never launched it to begin with. So you don't want to waste that time. That was 2 years that they really could have used if they had known to have a game like Sonic originally, which they couldn't have known that was going to be so big, but to really give them a head up on Nintendo. And things kind of evened out because Super Mario World was another one of those games you're talking about, but so good. And think about Mario 64 and all these other games. I'm not saying we're making the same jump from 2D sprites to 3D polygons. That's not the jump we're making anymore, but this idea that everyone's just like, it's just a GPU and a CPU and sliders on an x86 and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, but what about like Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart? Everyone just made the exact opposite argument 6 months ago about Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Now everyone's making the exact opposite argument to justify why you can't leave behind 120 million PS4s. I don't care. I'm a PS5 owner, so I'm going to advocate for us to get some PS5 games. And that's just the way it's going to be. But I did want to throw this in there too, because this kind of dovetails a little bit. Adam Stump wrote in. He said, Guten Tag, amigos. This is concerning the cross-gen nature of Resident Evil 8. I too, Colin, was bummed when I saw Resident Evil 8 would be coming to PlayStation 4, but not so much in the sense that it's cross-gen, but just let down because it's yet another title where it was misleadingly advertised as a PS5 exclusive, only to find out later that it's coming to PS4. I'm all for cross-gen games since that's where most of the install base is. All I'm asking is that they be upfront with us in the beginning so we don't end up getting punked. And I'm fairly confident that's how you guys feel as well. Thoughts? Keep up the great work, gentlemen. So this is the other side of the equation, right, Dustin? Like, that's why I was so disappointed with Resident Evil 8 is because they made it seem intentionally, I think, that it was a next-gen game. And the act like they just turned on the PS4 version 6 months ago is nonsense. Of course, they were planning this all along. And Sony has been even more egregious with it, frankly. They did it with Miles Morales, and then they did it again with Horizon. And I feel like it is frustrating. I think Adam's on to something. What do you think?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, go for it, Chris.
No, I think it is frustrating, but it's only frustrating because of how Sony chooses to address it. You know, like because Sony was originally on like putting Microsoft on blast for, you know, being like, hey, you know, there's going to be cross-gen support for like a while. And then they were like, nah, yo, we believe in generations, dog. And then they just completely backed up on it. They were just like, actually, well, for like the next 2 years, most of what you're going to be able to play is going to be available on PlayStation 4. So right. In that regard, I think it could be frustrating. But the act of it existing on previous generations in and of itself, to me, isn't frustrating.
Right. I think that somewhere along the line, Sony was, you know, talking shit, saying like, we believe in generations. And around this time is when they realized, oh, we are not going to be able to fulfill these like we once thought. Let's rethink some things. You know what I mean? Which I don't know. Maybe that doesn't really make sense, because you got to wonder at what point with Horizon did they... Because they were they developing...
Horizon 2 started as a PS4 game.
Right. Okay, yeah. So that's...
I mean, what I mean by that is that it was a PS4 game before they ever announced it. And when they announced it, they made it seem like a PS5 game, but it was always a PS4 game. You know, if that makes any sense? Yeah, in other words, it was never going to be a PS5 game. They were going to released it already. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
So, and I actually predicted that a long time ago. I thought that they could squeeze it in because Horizon is clearly such a huge investment. not only for Decima and for Guerrilla, but also just, it's an open world role-playing game. You want to get something else out of it, but they're going to get something else out of it. My biggest disappointment is just reflected in that video, and I'll say it again. It's just that, yeah, can you do some sliders, resolution and frame rate? Yeah, that's all true. And if it's baked into the cake from the beginning, it's not that big of a deal. But then it really begs the question why we need these consoles at all. And it's just it's circular logic. That's why I said in the video, Dustin, again, we keep referencing the video, but I said it's just a bad argument. That's all it is. It's a bad argument. And it's not about opinions or anything like that. It's just like, come up with a better argument. Because saying like there are too many people far behind and no one can find the console, this is not the first time that these things have happened. Please.
No, yeah. I remember being a kid on Christmas Day with a Wiimote and no controller. And it was like, well, actually it was the 360 that it was like a month later that it was like my parents were like, hey, we wanted to get this for you, but we can't. So it's not uncommon. This is.
Yeah, the Wii was way harder to find than the PS5. I mean, the Wii was impossible. And it was before you could really coordinate online, Social media didn't really exist the way it does now. It was totally different back then. And so they were really hard to find. I didn't see one in the wild until 2008. I mean, it's nuts. I remember that so well because I almost couldn't believe it. And I was over it by that point too. It was like, I don't give a fuck about this thing. All right. Chris St. Jacques has a quick one I can answer. He says, hey, my sweet boys, not sure if the audience is big on this franchise. They are big on this franchise. And I know Chris can't differentiate a baseball with a football, but it's a little concerning. We haven't heard anything about this year's iteration of MLB The Show. This game is quietly one of Sony's first party behemoths, and normally we'd have heard a lot about it at this point, with the game normally releasing in March. It's also the first game for them of next gen, which is exciting. Delay likely. Also, is there anything new on the multi-platform front? So there's a few pieces of information about this. First of all, Chris, never feel bad about writing in about the show. It's one of Sony's most important franchises, and it's one of the best-selling games of the year every year in the United States. So it's clearly very popular. Sony San Diego, the studio that makes it, said that they'll have more to say about the game in February. You are absolutely right. It is incredibly late for them to talk about it. They usually talk about it a little bit the previous fall, and then they really do a blowout very early in the year. And the language in the MLB and Sony release when the game was announced to have been going multi-platform back in 2019 says it will begin as soon as 2021, meaning that this is the first year that maybe these games are on other consoles. My assumption is that they are, and that's why Sony has no interest in saying anything, because they probably have to reveal at that point that it's on what it's on. And I don't know that it benefits them to say anything soon, because the PlayStation audience is going to be ready to scoop it up. But if you make everyone else aware of it, maybe there's an opportunity cost. So, Chris, I just wanted to throw Chris St. Jacques, I should say, not Chris Raygun. I just wanted to throw that out there. You'll have more information in February. I think they'll get the game out on time, PS4 and PS5. And then we'll see what happens with Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and Switch. But I think it's all coming this year. And I think a lot of it has to do with this. It is very quiet. Maybe what happens is that you get the PS4 and PS5 versions first, and then the other ones a little later. The worst case scenario is that they're not ready with the PS5 version, and that's why they're not saying anything. And if that's the case, that is also a big problem, because that might be one of the first games to really justify the console, even though it's going to be available on everything else. And finally, Steve Gray wrote in and said, good day, fellas. Almost 3 months after release date, I wanted to check in with you guys. How are your DualSenses holding up, particularly your adaptive triggers? Personally, I have already gone through one controller with the R2 trigger completely losing its resistance to the point that the slightest graze would trigger its action. After doing my research, I found that this was a common issue, as the triggers are only being held up by a feeble spring that seems prone to breaking. I love the DualSense, and I have been sent a replacement, but this has left me seriously worried about the longevity of these controllers to the point that I'm considering switching the adaptive triggers off completely. This reminds me, boys, and I don't know if you remember this, but the Dreamcast controller was easy to break. The triggers were awful, and people used to break them in very specific games like Crazy Taxi, like on a constant basis. What I'm hearing about the triggers breaking at this point reminds me a lot of those heady Dreamcast days when the controllers were breaking left and right, and it was because people were playing them so hard. This time, I think it's more about sophisticated hardware and it breaking and maybe not being up to snuff. But I don't know if this is very similar to the unraveling dual sticks or the sticks on the DualShock 4, or if this is like something more serious. Chris, are you seeing any issues with your DualSense? I'm going to keep checking up on this because I want to track our progress here, or lack thereof.
Yeah. So I don't know if this is, because I only noticed it during Hitman. and I haven't noticed it anywhere else, but like I've noticed on my right stick, unintentionally my camera will go like up, and like even though I'm not touching it, and I have to like I don't know if the dead zone on my DualSense is like just completely borked or what it is, but it only happens sometimes, and I've only noticed it in Hitman, so I'm willing to guess it's like maybe a bug of some kind. But my triggers are fine. I will say though that I turn off dynamic triggers for multiplayer stuff, which is primarily what I'm using my PS5 now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
It's just too distracting, and I'm just like, no.
It's a disadvantage.
Yeah, like I'm fine with Rumble because Rumble actually like gives me tactical information, but like I understand, like I'm holding a weapon and I'm pulling a trigger. I understand that that's a hard action to perform in real life. I don't need, like I don't, especially in a competitive setting, I don't need to simulate that. The campaign, yeah, I'll keep it on, but so yeah, no, my triggers are fine. I'm a little bit concerned about my sticks.
Right. Yeah.
How are you feeling, Dustin?
So I haven't had any issues with the adaptive triggers, but I have heard of this issue. I haven't gotten a sense of how widespread it is, but Colin, I think it's like you said, with the first version of a controller, there's always, I mean, with any hardware, there's always issues. You talked about the peeling sticks of the launch PS4 controllers, which that like definitely happened to me. And I don't know if that was just like a bad batch of rubber or something was off where certain controllers were peeling and certain ones weren't. So I think that they will, I don't know, they tweak these things constantly as they produce more of them. So unfortunately, like if you have a launch one, it's probably going to be way more likely to break than one that's coming out later after they kind of tweak these things. So yeah, overall, DualSense has been fine. I'm finding that the bigger controller has been hurting my thumb, which Colin, I told you I may need surgery on my thumb.
Yeah, what's the status with that?
Well, it didn't bother me when PS5 first came out, but now that my thumb has been getting a lot worse, which basically I have like a tendon issue, and it's like, it's really
never
annoying.
Gonna game again.
Right. The weird part is I did my entire Sekiro Platinum run after I got a cortisone shot. No issues. Played about an hour and I was playing on a DualShock 4. Just to be clear. So hours and hours on a DualShock 4, no problem. Played like 2 hours of Cyber Shadow on DualSense, and my thumb wanted to die. So something about the increased ergonomics is really hurting my thumb. And it sucks because I cannot use the DualShock 4 on PS5 games. So basically this is my life.
Makes sense. I mean, I'm not going to hold that against them. It is, and there's something interesting here though, right? Like, the subtleties of the shape of a controller and the weight and how you get used to it over thousands of hours, right? And then I remember when I got my PS5 controller and I like couldn't get used to it, and then suddenly I'm just used to it now, right? And what's weird is that I go back to PS4, like I played even PS3 when I played BioShock Infinite over the break. You're used to those too, and then you just kind of add it to this repertoire in your mind of all these different controllers. But you know what would be an interesting study? I wouldn't ever have the patience to do this. It's more of an academic study, but wouldn't it be interesting to kind of even videotape or take pictures of people holding their controllers and how they play, right? The same controller, the same game, but how does someone hold it? How do they use it? Like what very specific ways are their fingers wrapped around it? And I think that with that study, they would find why some of these things break, because I bet you that it could have been a bad batch of rubber, and it probably was, but I bet you it also was how people play. It's not to say people were playing wrong. It's like you might hold your thumb on the stick like a millimeter up further than I do. And that might have literally unraveled it, you know? And maybe when they were so I'm always fascinated by those use cases, because we probably all had the same rubber in our initial Dual Shock 4 controllers. I think it just had a lot to do with just the way people play. And I'm fascinated by that. And I'm not saying the claw thing and the weird, you know, some people used to play NES games. I think some people do still play NES games upside down, like the controller upside down, if they're left-handed and all that kind of stuff. So they basically play totally inverted. It's just interesting to think about how one holds it. And I would love to know more about that. You know, it would be cool for Sony to release that information. I'm sure they have it. You know, I'm sure they have that data. I'm sure they have plenty of people and plenty of video. There's that guy, Richard Marks, not the singer, but Richard Marks, they're like the guy that made the PlayStation Move and the PlayStation Camera and the PSVR. He's apparently nuts with that stuff. And it would be cool to like, I used to go to GDC talks with him where he had like all sorts of weird shit And it would be cool to see that kind of stuff. I would love that. So
it would be
Sony,
cool
if you're listening, and I know you are, maybe do something for us there.
Yeah,
what are you learning?
I hold my
you do that thing. See, that's one of the things that's weird, where you use your pointer to use the face buttons, which is that's a total edge case. But that's the kind of stuff that I would like to see. You know, it's the same people. I mean, Arthur Geese, who I used to work with at IGN, played left. What do they call it? Southpaw, right? Where like you're moving with the other hand. I mean, that's like totally. I don't even know how you play like that. But that's why people used to hold the controller upside down. You know, because they felt like they needed to control it with their, with their right hand, which is so weird. I don't know.
Very bizarre, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Right? Like, think about it. The NES controller is what taught us that we control it with the left finger, the movement with left finger.
Yeah.
Nothing else taught us that, because when you think about it, in the Famicom too, but like we had joysticks. You can actually hold the joystick really almost any way you wanted on the Atari. There was a button. You can hold the button and press it with your thumb or you press it with your... But it was that controller that's like, nope, this is how you hold it. And then every other controller, it's amazing that level of influence,
No, totally.
You can bring it back to Game & Watch and all that, but we're not going to get into that. This is not a Nintendo podcast. All right, boys. That's all we have to do, I think, today with the show. Any closing comments, Dustin?
I don't know, man. Check out the Discord. Check out the Patreon. I don't know. I instantly go to plugs at the end of an episode. So
you seem very taxed.
Taxed?
Yeah. Like
I feel
tired.
great. No, I feel fantastic. I feel good. I mean, I don't
mean you felt that way throughout the show. I mean, right this moment.
Oh, no, I feel great. I feel 10 out of 10.
Excellent. That's good. Chris, do you have any closing comments?
Play Hitman. Play Hitman 3, please.
Yes. Yeah. I think
if you don't play anything else, play the second level of Hitman 3. That's it. You'll have a amazing time.
And play Cyber Shadow too if you if anyone has balls out there. I don't know if any of you do. Guess we'll find out.
Oh.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining me today on Sacred Symbols of PlayStation podcast. Thank you all out there for your love, kindness, and support of our show on Patreon and on free feeds. If you are a scallywag and listen on free feeds, do leave us nice reviews on iTunes, etc. Follow us on the YouTube channel. Leave us nice comments, etc. Tell your friends, family about everything we do. We love and appreciate you guys. We'll see you next time. Until then, goodbye.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC, and is recorded from Central Virginia and Burbank, California, USA. The show was conceived by, is written by, and is produced by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is Chris Raygun Maldonado. Sacred Symbols' executive producer is Dustin Furman, and the show is edited by associate producer Ben Smith. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer support level or higher on Patreon, and we're grateful for your kindness and generosity.